and the area news media by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald, OPPD outlets newsletter, OPPD.com, and social media, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on May 10th, 2024. A copy of the proposed agenda for the meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for public inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection on OPPD.com and in the meeting room. Thank you all for joining us. As a reminder to those joining us on WebEx, please mute your microphone to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You are in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. Our agenda for today's meeting is as follows. We will conduct a closed session this morning to discuss one topic, Enterprise Risk Management Quarterly Update. We will conclude this morning's closed session no later than 9:50 a.m. in order to go open the WebEx meeting to allow the public and OPPD staff to join. We will begin public session at approximately 10 o'clock a.m. and review reports from each committee. Director Wagner, do we have a motion to go into closed session?
We do. I move that the board go into closed session at this time, 10 a.m. to discuss one topic, Enterprise Risk Management Quarterly Update. With respect to the Enterprise Risk Management Quarterly Update, a closed session is necessary for the protection of the public interest because the discussion involves matters that are confidential and protected by the attorney-client privilege and the attorney work product doctrine, and involve the discussion of security for district property and utility infrastructure information. This motion requires a second.
Second. Director Wagner,
Yes.
Director Kavanaugh, Director Ford,
Yes.
Director Howard. Yes. Director Omaha. Yes. Director Moody.
Yes.
Director Spurgeon.
Yes.
Director Williams.
Yes. The motion to go into closed session has passed. This closed session will be limited to discussion regarding one topic, Enterprise Risk Management Quarterly Update. No votes or other board action will be taken. Motion and second is required to reconvene in open session.
So moved.
Second. Director Wagner,
Yes.
Director Kavanaugh, absent. Director Ford,
Yes.
Director Howard. Yes. Director Omaha. Yes. Director Moody.
Yes.
Director Spurgeon.
Yes.
Director Williams.
Yes, the motion to come out of closed session at 10:10 a.m. is carried. This closed session was limited to discussion regarding one topic, Enterprise Risk Management Quarterly Update. No votes or other board actions were taken. Notice of the time and place of these committee meetings was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald, OPPD outlets newsletter, OPPD.com, and social media, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on May 10th, 2024. Thank you all for joining us this morning. As a reminder to those joining on WebEx, please mute your microphone to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You are in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. We will take public comments at the end of today's meeting, as well as at the board meeting on Thursday, May 16th, which will be conducted in person at the Omaha Douglas Civic Center and will begin at 5 o'clock p.m. The public may attend in person or remotely via WebEx by going to OPPD.com. Joining me today in person are my fellow board members, Amanda Wagner, Matt Ford, Sarah Howard, Janice Molhoff, Craig Moody, and Mary Spurgeon. Director Mike Kavanaugh notified us ahead of time that he is unable to attend in person, but may be joining virtually through WebEx. We also have members of our executive leadership team, Steve Bruckner, our general counsel with the Fraser Stryker Law Firm, and OPPD staff. Additionally, we currently have 17 attendees in the meeting, consisting of OPPD employees and members of the public. Today, we will hear the following committee reports. Governance Committee report from Director Wagner, Finance Committee report from Director Spurgeon, Customer and Public Engagement Committee report from Director Howard, and Systems Management and Nuclear Oversight Committee report from Director Moody. Javier Fernandez will now give the safety briefing.
Okay, I can actually do the safety briefing. I'll play my best Josh today. For those of us here in the room, it's important for to remember we have two exits. The doors that we came in behind me, and then there's another door that exits back towards the end of the room. AED and first aid kits are located just outside the door. We would ask you to get familiar with those as you go out towards the restrooms. Make sure that you're aware of your environment, falling, trip hazards, cords, purses, briefcases. That's important to just make sure that they're out of the way if you have to exit quickly. Do I have someone who call 911 if we need assistance, Jeff? Thank you. And the address is 1919 Next Arbor Drive. Thank you. In the case of an active shooter, we will run, hide, or fight in that order. If we have to exit the room or the building, we would exit and congregate across the street in the hotel to do a head count, make sure that we have everyone accounted for. And if you're feeling ill, we ask you to please tell your neighbor. If you have to excuse yourself, there have been instances in the past, and I'll put a quick example here, where if someone's having a coughing attack, right, and have to leave the room because they're coughing, thank you for doing that, but it would be good for someone to follow up, right? You never know if that person may need assistance or not. So that's the type of awareness that we're asking for people feeling ill. On the psychological safety, healthy conflict is important. And it is just an opportunity for us to remember that all ideas are important to consider, to be willing to raise your hand, share an idea, be willing to learn, be willing to offer ideas, regardless of your position in the organization, your title, or how loud your voice is. I think it's important for us to have a welcoming environment and promote healthy conflict. There will be conflict as we deal with complex ideas and topics. There's a way to have unhealthy or healthy conflict. And in this case, we encourage that healthy conflict, respectfully considering other perspectives, be willing to listen, and be willing to entertain other ideas. On the cybersecurity front, just again, it's just a good reminder that we receive training on a frequent basis. And we do that because we are creatures of habit and we sometimes forget. We are caught in the daily busyness. For example, when we are probably the most vulnerable is when we are the most stressed. There was a heightened awareness during the tornado recovery efforts we had a couple of weeks ago. So this is when we cannot let our guard down. We're all busy trying to restore power. This is when the bad actors usually come in and exploit that vulnerability. So it's important for us to stay aware of that. On the safety focus for May, fire safety, I just talked a little bit about fire extinguishers. Be prepared on knowing how to respond in the event of a fire. It's super important. Make sure that just a public service announcement, you check the fire extinguishers at home, make sure that they're still in good working condition, make those investments, make sure that you have a plan. We have plans here in the building, but when you're at home, know exactly what would you do if, what would your loved ones do if there's a fire. Fatigue awareness is important, as I mentioned last month. This month continues to be the same thing. Fatigue has proven to decrease concentration, motivation, reaction times, accuracy, and increase errors. We're in the busy months of a lot of work. Not only the work that you see outside and on the power lines, but the work that you see inside our power plants is gigantic. And so fatigue awareness is very, very important. Make sure that we are giving our employees enough time to rest. And we're asking a lot of them to do a lot of really good, important work in a very concentrated period of time. And the last one is just a reminder of material handling is important. During the last 5 years, we have had approximately 55 injuries involving material handling work activities. So that's important. And it's not necessarily when you're performing work, it's when you're doing material handling and moving material from one place to the other. Of these 55 events, 12 of them became DARTs, day-aways, restricted, or transferred, meaning our employees sustained an injury that was severe enough that it limited the way they could work in the following days. This accounted for 151 days away and 470 restricted days. So it's another focus area that it's not just people climbing poles that are at risk, it's all of us moving material around the district. And that concludes my safety briefing.
Great, thanks very much. First committee this morning is the Governance Committee. Dr. Bogner.
All right, thank you. The Governance Committee met on May 7th and all committee members were present. After the safety briefing and a review of prior month's action items, we talked about the annual health plan report, which is on our agenda today. And then we moved on to officer compensation adjustment. So Mikkel Purnell has provided in diligent the officer compensation adjustment recommendations for our review between now and next month. Next month, it will be part of our agenda, but it's provided ahead of time. So if you have questions, you have time to flag those either to me or I think Javier would probably be the right person to ask any questions of, and certainly in June, we'll also have performance-related materials as well. We then moved on to talk about LB 1300. Mr. Foch presented the new law and answered committee member questions. This isn't something, so just for context, this bill had some elements in there that allows board of directors salary to be increased, which hasn't been done in quite a long time. We don't yet have an approach on how we're going to take next steps, but we'll be aligning on that here soon and reporting out probably in June on what that approach looks like. We talked about SD 15 Enterprise Risk Management Monitoring Report, which is also on our agenda today, so I'll skip over that. And then we rounded out our conversation with a board workshop review, looking at current status and next steps. Directors will be asked to fill out a survey here in June. That along with one-on-one meetings with LRI, our facilitator, along with the parking lot of items that we've collected over the last several months will form the basis of our agenda for the workshop. So look for a survey that will be issued on June 14th, I believe is. Surveys will, be in diligent on June 14th, and then there'll be a due date published. So keep an eye out for that one. And then we also looked at the planning calendar, viewed and confirmed our planning calendar and our work plan. So that is it for the committee report. We'll move on now to our first topic, which is the annual health plan report. And we have Vicki joining us to present that today.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Vicki Lee. I am the supervisor of our Human Capital Service Center. So I am here to report on our 2023 health plan. So at OPPD, we maintain a health plan for our employees, retirees, survivors, and eligible dependents. The district's health plan is a self-funded administrative services only health plan, which includes medical insurance, dental insurance, pharmacy, prescription drug coverage, as well as related health programs. We are subject to the Political Subdivision Self-Funding Benefits Act, which requires an annual report, which is what I'm doing here today, and then also 2 reserved accounts. The 2023 health plan report consists of 2 sections. The first section displays our expenses as well as the reductions to those expenses on the district's self-funded health plan. And then the second section summarizes the activities on the 2 reserve accounts. The first part is our expenses. So our medical, dental, and prescription gross claims were $36,237,000. The claim cost is for active full-time and eligible part-time employees that are enrolled in our health plan. Our medical and prescription claims went up by $5.2 million over 2022. This was largely in part due to an increase in the number of high-cost claimants over what we had in 2022, which resulted in an additional $2.7 million in added costs. In addition, pharmacy spend continues to increase as new drugs come onto the market and then prescription drug costs increase. We're also seeing that in our health plan as well. We did have an increase in our enrollment with our medical plans by 4%. And then lastly, general inflation, medical and pharmacy trend continue to play a factor as well in our healthcare costs. Our dental claims, they increased by $500,000. This was largely due to our contract negotiations in 2022, which increased our dental benefits, which were effective 1/1 of 2023. We also saw a slight increase in our dental plan enrollment as well. Our post-employed benefit or OPEB trust is here for, it's used to pay for current and future medical claims, cost expenses for our retirees, survivor of retirees, and employees that are on long-term disability. So medical claims, medical claim administration fees, health savings account funding, as well as prescription drugs also go through, and life insurance premiums do go through our OPEB trust.
And Vicky, if I may, sorry for the interruption, this is
Okay.
important because this benefit is something that retirees receive in addition on top of their pension monthly payments. And it's a very important one. It's often overlooked, but it clearly shows in.
Which is correct. Thank you, Javier. So yes, the OPEB trust is there for our retirees, surviving retirees, and then the employees that are on long-term disability. So it's what pays their medical claims, life insurance premiums, prescription drug costs. If there's an actuarial analysis that's done each January 1st to determine what the annual required contribution will be for the new year, the amount of the annual required contribution did go up $4 million over 2022. So the contributing factors was the market and then also increased liability as well on our OPEB. Our health plan fees and reserve adjustments totaled $4,304,000. The health plan fees were what goes into this $4,304,000 is our health savings account funding by OPPD that's made into the accounts of eligible full-time employees that are enrolled in our high deductible health plan. So our enrollment in the high deductible health plan did increase by 2% over 2022. And then also in this cost or this fee is our medical and dental administration fees. So the fees that our self-funded plan pays for our vendors. The 2023 fees are slightly higher due to the increased enrollment that we've recognized with our medical and dental plans. And then in addition, in 2022, we received a $100,000 wellness credit from UMR. That was a one-time wellness credit. So that did lower our health administration fees in 2022. Like I said, it was a one-time fee that we did receive. We also have health management fees that also go into this cost, and those fees include teledoc, plan advisors through UMR, which are here to help direct employees on healthcare costs and direct them on care, and then also the UMR care management program, which is here for those chronic, emerging, ongoing conditions that employees or our members may see. We also have stop loss coverage as well. So we have two different stop loss plans that we oversee. As a political subdivision of the state of Nebraska, we are required to have aggregate stop loss coverage. This aggregate stop loss coverage will reimburse the plan when our total claim costs exceed 120% of our projected claim costs for any calendar year. We also have an individual stop loss coverage that we provide. This was added in 2011 due to the Affordable Care Act's removal of the lifetime limits on health plans. So this coverage will reimburse the plan for claim payments on an individual when claim payments exceed $400,000 per member in a calendar year. We did renew our individual stop loss coverage and aggregate coverage in 2023. With that gave us the ability to lower our individual stop loss coverage from $450,000 to $400,000. The last item that's included in the fees is the reserve amounts. So this is that second part of our annual health plan report, that the two reserves that we're required to have. So the first one is incurred but not presented. So this reserve accounts for timing delays in claim filing and processing. There is an actuarial study that is done annually to determine the amount that's needed for this reserve. This reserve adjustment did increase by $588,000 over 2022. The second required reserve is our monthly claims and expense reserve. This reserve ensures that there's funds available to administer the health plan in the ensuing month. So again, there's an analysis that is done that's completed out annually to determine the amount of the reserve, which uses actuarial projections to estimate the cost of 1 month's expenses. So only the adjustments to the incurred but not presented reserve are recorded as an expense since a liability exists. Next is the reduction in our expenses. So this includes employee premiums, employee contributions for the medical and dental coverage, and then premium contributions that are collected for those that are on COBRA or continuation of coverage. We did have an increase in our premiums for our medical and dental plan. And then stop loss reimbursements are also a reduction of expenses as well. So reimbursements do vary each year. We did have a lot of higher large claims in 2023 than we did in 2022. So we did see higher reimbursements in 2023 due to having more high cost claimants. And then prescription drug rebates. This is also a reduction to our expenses. Rebates are also variable as well. So they're related to medications that are filled by our enrolled members. And then rebates were 21% or $400,000 higher in 2023 than what they were in 2022. And an increase in rebates is typically due to higher pharmacy spend, which we have been seeing and recognizing over the past few years. So overall, our health plan net expense increased $8.7 million from 2022 to 2023. However, that increased premium paid by employees, the stop loss reimbursements, and prescription drug rebates did help offset that increase by $2 million. So each year, our goal when we look at our benefits is we want to have a healthy workforce, and we also want to mitigate costs as much as possible. So it's very important to us to have a robust and full wellness program, as well as cost containment and then health management programs to support a healthy workforce and mitigate those costs. So some of the programs that we provide to our employees is annual health screens and flu shot administration. We also have annual on-site cancer screenings for our employees. We provide a smoking cessation program, and then we have a number of weight management programs, including a 52-week-long program through Real Appeal, which comes with our medical plan with UMR. Our wellness program and portal, we also host several events as well as wellness challenges throughout the years that employees can participate in as well. Last year in May of 2023, we did change to UMR's ongoing condition care program that focuses on several conditions and not just diabetes. Our prior health management vendor just focused on diabetes. We wanted to expand that, so we went with UMR's care program. So it also focuses on a number of other conditions such as heart failure, cholesterol, hypertension, diabetes as well, chronic kidney disease, a number of cancers, and depression, anxiety, ALS, MS, a number of several other conditions it also focuses on. So we are monitoring and watching to see how that goes over the next year. We also have UMR's Care Queues program, which provides reminders to members when there's over about 150 different gaps in care. So if they see a gap in care, they're going to send out a reminder. And then in 2023, we also changed our drug tiers to account for high-priced generics. What we're seeing coming out is there's a lot of high-priced generics that cost more than what that brand name is. So by changing our tiers, this allows employees to get that brand name drug instead of that higher cost generic program. And then providing mental health resources is also very important to us. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we have training going on. Myself, I just went through mental health first aid training, which lasts for 3 years. So in 3 years, I'll go through that again. So a number of employees are also doing that as well. We feel that's very important. So in addition to that, our health plan also provides access to in-network mental health providers. And then we also have an employee assistant program, which we changed to. And when we changed to the new EAP program, we also have additional visits that employees can access throughout the year. And this does renew every year. And then Teledoc. In addition to Teledoc, it provides general medicine services and dermatology, but it also provides mental health services. So if somebody finds themselves in a chronic situation, or they connect with a counselor, they can continue ongoing care through Teledoc. And then we also provide several other resources through the programs with EAP our wellness program, that's going to support employees in several other areas of their well-being. So their physical, emotional, career, social, and then financial. So we have a number of resources available to employees to support them in these areas. Another top condition for us is musculoskeletal. So we are currently evaluating programs that will help employees in that space and also mitigate costs. In addition to musculoskeletal, we're also evaluating other programs and looking at other programs that will also support our employees with a healthy workforce, mitigating costs. And then finally, we continue to evaluate our current programs. We want to make sure that what we're providing is of value to our members and also helping with our plan and our claim costs overall. So we want to provide programs that support employees, provide a healthy workforce, and also mitigate cost. So I will now open it up to any questions that you might have.
I have two, and sorry if I missed this. Curious what percentage of our employees are participating in our health insurance program?
So our percentage, I don't have the exact figure right now, but it is around 91, 92% that we have for enrollment.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. My only, maybe this isn't a question, it's a comment. I appreciate you sharing the approach on the mental health stuff. I think the latest statistics I saw from 2023 were around 65% of employees writ large are experiencing burnout. Given how much we have going on, I can see that as a kind of an ongoing risk. So I appreciate the investment we're making in that to help our folks. So that's good.
Thank you. Yes, we find mental health is very important. So we're constantly looking at our programs and trying to bring as much in that will help the workforce. Appreciate that. Anything else?
Just say that I appreciate the detail and the wellness services that are offered. I think that's super important and indicates that really that we care about people, that OPPD cares about everybody who works here and wants the best for them.
Absolutely. Thank you.
If I may, in the kudos section to Vicky, you and your team do a fantastic job. I know my family calls you and your team, and the way you respond and help us navigate through everything is fantastic. And it's not just because I'm the CEO. I know you do these for everybody else. So I think the care that you put in for all of our employees is fantastic. So not only just, it goes beyond the numbers. It's really the relationship. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. I feel if there's anything that I can do to help somebody and take something off of their shoulders, I'm happy to help. There's no other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the SD 15 Enterprise Risk Management Monitoring Report. Scott, will you help us?
Yeah, excellent. Good morning. This is the annual monitoring report for SD 15. And once again, Dan Liskowski, our Director of Risk and Innovation, will be presenting, I think, highlighting some really great results for the year. So Dan.
Good morning. Thank you, Scott. Welcome, members of the board. Next slide, please. So again, we have SD 15, our strategic directive about maintaining an enterprise risk management program. This is the text from that strategic directive. We'll walk through these as we go through the next slide. So ensure that the district is maintaining an ERM program that fulfills this policy. So on the page here is my attempt at trying to put this out in a structure. I get that it's a bit of an eye chart, but at the top you see our board of directors committees. We do try to mirror those to the best of our ability with our enterprise risk management working group committees, which are at the bottom. Each of those are chaired by a member of the organization, and certainly my team attends and supports those meetings. But we want to have kind of a hands-off approach to the outcomes of those discussions so that we don't have too much influence over the outcome of a particular risk. Again, I rely on a wonderful team there on the far left side. My lead, Charlie Schinken, and analyst Patrick DeHota, who are in the back of the room there behind Scott. And certainly none of this would be possible without them. So I wanted to take a minute to appreciate all their hard work. And then There's myself there, and then I report up through Scott, our Vice President of Corporate Strategy and Governance. And he is one of the many members, obviously the entire executive team on that middle box, the Executive Risk Committee, as well as our legal counsel. And so all these pieces, really coordinate together to ensure that risks are being identified, assessed, evaluated through our risk matrix, and then as they rank through our matrix at the higher levels, we do, escalate them to our executive team and ultimately to the board, as mentioned earlier this morning in closed session. So, next slide. And so then again, we guide responsibilities and procedures for managing risks. We have all 4 of those committees do meet on a monthly basis. There is at least one representative from every business unit on those committees to ensure that we have a good holistic discussion and look at all the risks from a cross-functional view, so that we're not missing any critical pieces, whether it's reliability or reputation, et cetera. And then we have our quarterly discussions, again, with that executive ERM committee and the board of directors, ultimately trying to affirm that our enterprise risks, especially, including potential emerging risks, are identified to a reasonable extent, that they're understood, and that the mitigation strategies are understood appropriate as well. So, next slide. And so with that, we do review our most significant risks with the board on a quarterly basis, as we did earlier this morning, and the previous dates there as well over the last year. And again, there's just a snapshot of our matrix to show that it's a very structured approach to hopefully allow for good, consistent results as we evaluate risks from across the district, because financial risk to a safety risk to an operational risk have different quantities and characteristics, and yet we want to make sure we have a consistent way to evaluate those risks. Next slide. And obviously, there's a key part about ownership, and that there's many people involved, more than just myself and my team, to ensure that those risks are understood and driving us in the right direction. So there's certainly subject matter experts that ultimately report up to a risk owner at the senior leadership level, usually at the director level, and then those individuals report up to our executive leadership owner, which is what allows us to have those executive owners report on those risks in our closed session discussions. And they're responsible for those different pieces. Additionally, as we're having our risk discussions, directors are able to request information from corresponding executive leadership owners responsible for any of those risks. And they can also request additional expertise to supplement their understanding of it, so that we allow for the board to be fully informed, to allow for the best possible discussions and ultimately any policy changes that may result. Next slide. And beyond just the ERM program, obviously we want to make sure that risk is woven into many of the different procedures around the district, including our strategic planning process, our resource planning process, our capital project prioritization. Certainly, as you all review the corporate operating plan at the end of the year, there's a lot of risk discussions that go into influencing, which projects do seem funding and at what degree of funding they get versus those that don't. And those are all risk-based discussions. The executive team as well as many of the other teams that make those ultimate recommendation to the board possible through all those discussions, and risk is woven into all of that. We have a business decision model as well as a value framework. All those include a risk piece in connection to the enterprise risk that a project is determined to help mitigate. And then there are many, these are just a sample, many board conversations and topics and resolutions that have a flavor of risk management woven into them. Certainly, near-term generation discussion from last August, excess expenditures with the COP in November, and then obviously the corporate operating plan as well in December. So, next slide. That our recommendation. Committee has reviewed this and hopefully finds us to be sufficiently in compliance with board policy SD 15.
All right, board, any questions about? Very good. Excellent work. We had a great conversation this morning during closed session about ERM. I feel like one of the comments that was made at a high level was that you help us make risks in the conversation very transparent. And I think that through this framework, we see that every quarter, and the district has benefited from it every week. At this time, we'll pause to reflect on accomplishments and challenges and strategic implications. Anyone have any thoughts that they'd like to share with regard to this?
Director Bob,
Go.
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Javi.
I was just going to say, if I could offer, one of the things that I find very reassuring through this program, through the board's engagement in our enterprise risk management, when we're considering powering the future to 2050, you look at the shifting trends in our environment, everything that creates, both in terms of opportunity and risk. And to have a function that's so highly engaged across the organization at all levels of leadership, paying attention to what those risks are emerging and what they might mean for us in terms of resourcing, in terms of action, in terms of time, in terms of what we need to be doing, I find it very reassuring. The other thing I would offer, it's really wonderful as we connect through LPPC and other peer organizations. Our risk management program is very highly respected. They appreciate the approach we have. They appreciate the engagement that we report back to them from the board in this regard. And I just wanted to say I'm very incredibly proud of the work that the team is doing on behalf of serving the district. And I really do appreciate the engagement, like conversations we had today. It just makes it better. And many of the people that were here this morning hearing that really valued that as well. It helps shape how they facilitate those conversations. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
I was gonna say that, not as eloquently as Scott, but I'm not gonna ruin that. The only thing I will add is a key element of Current Future 2050 is having a future-ready posture. We wouldn't be able to do that without a solid enterprise risk management framework. That is a safety net that allows our teams to be innovative, to take risks, to consider possibilities, for us to transform the utility in a way that's safe, that has a framework where we can assess risks and possibilities. Not having this function would make that almost impossible, if not scary. But having the rigor and the structure we have on the enterprise risk management piece or function in the organization gives us the luxury of having a future ready posture. So I'm making that additional connection to the Power in the Future 2050.
Those are great. I think maybe not, risk is not the right word here, but I'm thinking about what the public's perception of this conversation might be, and they might view it as just kind of a big nothing burger. I want to be sure that they understand and have at least some appreciation for depth of the work that goes on behind the scenes and the quality of the conversation that we have in closed session around the risks. We have so much work in front of us. The risks are doing, it seems to me, nothing other than growing. So the framework is really, really good for us to have those conversations and to be aware of what those risks are. The monitoring report, yes, right? We're doing what we need to do in terms of creating the framework. That doesn't mean that the risks have gone away. That simply means that we've got the right processes in place.
Thank you. It's hard to talk about this, Steve, because
Yeah.
we can talk about
Yep.
all the other work that goes beyond it. So thank you very much, Dan.
Appreciate your comments. And again, without the team, it would not be possible. So appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, with that, Governance Committee, Russ.
Thanks very much. Next committee on the agenda today is the Finance Committee. We'll pass that to Director Spurgeon.
Thank you, Chair Williams. We met on Friday, May 3rd, and following a safety briefing, we were given an update on transmission service formula rate protocols, which sounds really complicated. I think it probably is, but this was just an awareness item for us. Robin Spady reported that, first of all, it was not a signal of a change in rates in transmission. What it is an order by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, to change the process by which transmission owners share information about rate increases, make that information more publicly available, more than just our customers, I think, and create a timeline for questions to be asked and answers to those questions to be given and to create an opportunity to resolve potential disputes informally. So, and this is being done nationwide. It was an order to do this. So apparently by doing this, FERC is attempting to encourage consistency and transparency throughout the United States. And the process, actually, there are many more steps in the protocol now, but it will make it easier for people to attend meetings and get answers to their questions before things get out of hand or assumptions are made that aren't accurate. So sounded like a good process altogether. So this was simply a reporting item to the board. Half of the board sits on the generation committee. So that was our report. Then we heard about a claim settlement report, which we're going to hear about shortly here. First quarter financial report was given, and the first quarter retirement plan report was just given very, very briefly. We spent all last month on that, so that was fine. And we'll hear about it today. And then our strategic directive was number 3, access to credit markets monitoring report. That was given, and followed with a quick look at the board work plan and a brief summary of the meeting. And that was our very expeditious finance committee meeting last week. So I will turn this over to CFO Jeff Bishop.
Thank you, Director Spurgeons. First off, we'll have Scott walk us through the claim settlement in excess of $50,000.
Good morning. The purpose of this is simply to report to the board a settlement of claim in excess of $50,000. You can see the details up here under the facts, but on July 20th, 2023, a district crew damaged a fiber duct. And that led to 3 individual claims. We're here to talk about 2 really. The other one had been distributed and reported to the board a couple of months ago. Both Great Plains and Zayao claimed approximately $56,000 in total damages for their 3 fiber cables. Again, the Nebraska statute requires a report to the board of directors for any settlement of a claim over $50,000. And the Great Plains and Zayao have agreed to a settlement in the amount of $52,291.95 without any admission of liability by the district. Any questions on this? Reporting complete.
I will just note this completes the action on this particular incident, so we shouldn't hear about it again. Hold on, tied up with a knot in the bow.
All right, next up, we've got the first quarter financial report. We walked through the detailed financials with the finance committee. Laura Langford, our director of accounting and controller, she'll walk us through the financial data.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. This is the report up here, and we'll spend a little time going through the details of this. As Jeff mentioned, we did meet with the committee and we went through not only budget variances, but year-over-year variances. We'll go through some of those details, but just overall, we have started off the year with some financial challenges. Namely, that's led by issues that we experienced with Winter Storm Jerry. So we'll talk about that in the details. So we can go to the next slide. All right, we're going to start up in the upper left with retail revenue. We are just actually slightly under budget, about $100 million year to date through the end of March. Winter Storm Jerry, y'all remember, it was very, very cold, but for the rest of the quarter, we actually had pretty mild weather. And so we were lower on usage across all of our customer categories, and that resulted in some lower revenue than for the first quarter. Jumping down to off-system revenue, again, on the left, we are over budget, about $19 million. That is primarily from additional congestion hedging revenue from the Southwest Power Pool that we received, as well as some higher participation sales that were higher than budget. Then we'll shift over to fuel and purchase power expense. Those together make up our net power costs. You can see here that we were over budget. This is where we're going to start talking about Winter Storm Jerry. We were over budget here in this category, about $34 million at the end of March. Again, Winter Storm Jerry is the impact there. During that time, we were seeing higher fuel prices. So we have higher fuel expense, and then we had higher purchase power volume, resulting then in higher purchase power expense. Then if we shift up just to kind of complete our operations and maintenance expense in the upper right, We're also over budget in this category, about $6 million at the end of the first quarter. Again, Winter Storm Jerry was the impact here. As we were working through issues at our facilities, we had higher production expenses then. And we'll just drop to the bottom here, other income and other expense. On the other income side, we are over budget about $4 million. This is primarily from higher revenue from SPP. This time it's related to transmission. Then we also had higher allowances for funds used during construction. It's a mouthful, but interest that we're earning that's related to the capital work that we have going on. And then lastly, on this page, other expense, we were just slightly under budget, less than $500,000, and that was just due to some lower depreciation expense. Any questions on this page before we shift to our next page? Okay, going to the next slide. All right, so the results, the results of all of that. So we look at the left-hand side, we have operating income and net income. As you can see, both of them are under budget. Operating income for the year to date through the end of March, we were under budget about $17 million, and net income was about $16 million. Really, the story there is what I just shared on the page before. It's from our operating results, and we see that with higher expenses compared to budget. Again, primarily led by the issues with Winter Storm Jerry, and then we didn't have enough revenue to make up for that. So we're seeing an under budget position at an income level. If we shift over to the cash balance and capital spending, you can see cash, we were under where we thought we'd be at the end of the quarter, still in a strong liquidity position, and I'll touch on that in the SD impact. But we were under where we expected to be from a cash perspective. We had some different timing on expenditures during the first quarter. And then you might all recall that we added at the end of the year, based on positive financial results, we added to our rate stabilization reserve. So we added that at the end of the year, and then in the first quarter, we funded that reserve. So that was part of the cash. We hadn't planned for that in the budget. Capital spending, we are pretty close on to budget, which is a different story than a lot of times we've had when we've talked about we've been underspent. We're pretty spot on to budget, but that is due to the additional turbines that we purchased early in the year. That wasn't part of our budget plan. So this is something we're really working with the teams as we forecast out the rest of the year to see where we'll end up with capital, and planning for that as we had planned for those expenditures. So we want to see how that'll shake out for the rest of the year. And the team's working really hard with that on the project managers. And then lastly, on this slide, the SD impact, we'll start with SD2 on rates. So as of the end of the first quarter, we are meeting that metric. We are at 16.2% below, based on the most recent EIA information. So that's 7 state defined regions. We're in a positive position there. And then access to credit markets on SD3. I'll jump down to cash first, since I talked about that. While we're below where we expected for cash, we still have 206 days of cash on hand. So that is a very strong position to be in. It is a drop a bit from the end of the year. That's well above our minimum days of cash in hand, which is 100 days. So still in a very strong position. And then also part of SD3, our debt service coverage. That's an important metric for us. We were at 1.96 times. So that's measuring against our metric of 2.0 times. So very close. And we do project that we'll be at 2.0 times by the end of the year. So we started off some challenges, but we do look forward to the rest of the year that we'll be in a strong position and meet that. With that, are there any questions?
Laura, we've talked a lot about mark to market in the past few years. It's been one of the topics that we talk about. Can you talk a little bit about what we've seen so far in the first quarter of the year with interest rate changes, and where are we?
Yeah, so mark to market, as Javier said, we've talked about that a lot. You don't see that in operating income, but it shows up in net income. And we don't ever expect to realize positive or negative because it's an accounting entry we need to make. We usually hold our investments until they mature. First quarter, it was positive, not quite as positive as the last year, but it was still positive. And so we're not seeing a huge impact then between that operating income and the net income based on the markets going more in our favor, not as in favor as the prior year, but still in our favor this year. At least through the first quarter.
Great update, Laura. 2 quick points of interest, both for the board and then also the public. Just from a process perspective, we go through these results in detail on a monthly basis with the ELD. They disseminate that down through their individual managers and walk through specifically the financial results. We also look at the balance of the year forecast. Where do we expect to end up at the end of the year? As Laura had highlighted, we expect to be at the 2 times debt service coverage. April continued to be a bit of a challenge. We had a tornado come through, which resulted in additional expense. We also had more mild weather as well. So those continue to put pressure on us. But again, we're still anticipating to achieve the 2 times debt service coverage by the end of the year. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Laura. All right, next up, we've got our first quarter retirement fund report, encouraging report. I'll let the cat out of the bag. We've got John Petrulis, manager in our treasury group over at Debt and Investments, who'll walk us through the results. Thanks, John.
Good morning, everybody. So as Jeff mentioned, I'll be covering the first quarter retirement fund results. The retirement fund ended the quarter with a balance of $1.23 billion. That was up from $1.2 billion to start the quarter. During the quarter, benefit payments exceeded contributions by approximately $7 million. And additionally, the investment gains were about $43 million. That excludes, I guess, expenses. The asset allocation continues to be within the policy ranges. And for the quarter, the plan overall returned 3.4% versus 3.2% for the index. That was helped immensely by the domestic equity return of 9.2%. It's interesting, growth continues to significantly outperform value stocks, but that was a good result for us. Domestic fixed income had a little bit of a headwind. A lot of people were expecting the Fed to cut rates during the first quarter. They did not do that, and that resulted in the slightly negative return on domestic fixed income. Finally, just like I mentioned, private real estate, that was down negative 2.1% for the quarter. And it's the office space that really continues to be the problem in the private real estate area. And there continues to be a lot of write downs in that particular sector. So with that, I would open it up for any questions.
Encouraging news, John. Just would highlight, as you think about the discount rate or the rate of return we anticipate, 6.5%. So we're over halfway there in the first quarter. So that's pretty exciting. Do also highlight the fact that our funds beat the index, which is always a good thing. So other questions?
Thank you.
Do we still have two private real estate managers?
We do have two private real estate managers. One of them is Harrison Street. They perform better. They're more in just things like storage, nursing homes, college, I guess, dormitory, college living spaces. PGIM is the other one. It's split about 50% each. They have a little bit more exposure to office space, although it's been decreasing. They try to maintain their core competency in things that are like grocery stores, I guess, or things that are more essential types of services than just they don't own any shopping malls and so forth. But yes. Thank you.
All right, next up, we've got the credit monitoring report, access to credit markets, SD3. Some things I want to highlight as we think about this, as we think about the importance of getting access to credit markets, keeping our costs as low as possible. Just to look at a couple of our key metrics, when we think about the amount of gross utility plant that we've got, we're at a $6 billion utility in terms of gross utility plant. We added $500 million of utility plant last year. So we're actively building the organization, making sure that we can continue to provide service to our customers as we move forward. And as we think about our capital programs moving forward, we're between $500 to $750 million of additional capital we're spending on an annual basis. And so as we think about the importance of that and keeping our costs as low as possible, having flexibility, that really highlights the importance of SD3 and access to credit markets. And so as we think about this, the goal that's been placed out by the board is to maintain our AA rating. We've got a number of key metrics that we put into place: debt service coverage, debt to capitalization, days cash on hand, again, all orchestrated around maintaining that AA rating. And the other piece that's important to highlight is the board requires us to have a process in place to ensure that we achieve those outcomes. And we'll walk through these in more detail. Move on to the next slide. The first measure we've got here is debt service coverage. We talk about all the time as part of the financial report that we just put out. We talked about achieving 2 times debt. And so as we think about that, well, what does that mean? I think most folks are relatively familiar with it, but the calculation is simply looking at our operating revenues less our operating expenses, and what's left over needs to be able to pay for our debt service. So our principal and interest 2 times. You know, we don't pay for our debt service twice, we only pay for it once. The extra debt service goes to pay for our capital program. As we think about it though, and we look at our achievements over the past 5 years, we can see since 2019, we've been able to routinely deliver on the 2 times debt service coverage out through 2023. And again, as we look at 2024 for the COP, we're anticipating to deliver that as well. We plan to do that when we put together the operating budget. I'll highlight this as we think about the criticality of maintaining that AA rating. This is a key metric that the rating agencies cue in on. And so again, this puts us in a strong position with the rating agencies. Move on to the next slide. So here's the corporate operating plan. This is really the process that we have in place to ensure that we can achieve these outcomes in the long run. And as we think about it, we develop a plan to ensure that we maintain the AA rating, looking at 2 times debt service coverage and also the other liquidity metrics. And again, you'll see over there the picture on the right in terms of the balancing act that we have to orchestrate between our operating costs, capital needs, rate impacts, and customer service levels. All of those come together and need to be considered as we think about the financial stability of the organization. So how do we do it? In terms of the process, we start this in the February timeframe. This past year for the 2024 COP, we had a 2-day offset where we laid out the strategic priorities for the organization. From there, then we worked through with the load forecast in the March timeframe, pulling together all of the different details that are needed in terms of load forecasts or net power costs, also looking at our capital requirements, operating expenses. In July and August, we get together as an ELT to work through specifically what we're going to advance forward in terms of budget assumptions. And then we go into the October, November timeframe, we bring that forward to the board for approval. We've done that not only just for a single year, but we do it for 5 years now, again, trying to make sure that we've got a good runway. And all of these critical metrics are coming together to deliver the financial stability that we need over a 5-year period. I'll also highlight too that we've got a number of others. We make sure that we're delivering all the strategic directives, but ones that rise to the top as part of this process would be SD2 on rates. Also making sure that, again, we've got the operational requirements in place for concerning SD4. And then also, as we've just walked through, and we're looking at the enterprise risk, that should really inform a lot of our resource allocation as we think about our long-term 5-year plans, making sure that we're contemplating the risks that are identified as part of SD15. Go to the next slide. We talk a lot about this, our debt ratio, so debt to capitalization, again, another measure of the financial health of an organization. We don't want to get too leveraged and not be able to access the credit markets. We can see that we've crested here at 66% in terms of where we're at projected for 2024. Worthwhile highlighting that we did have a planned decline 2016 through 2020. We're not reflecting 2016 here because we've got a 5-year window, but that cascaded down from 66% down to 57% in 2020 as we anticipated the need for additional investment in the future as we thought about power with the purpose and investing in our new generation. And that's what we've executed against. You can see how that's risen over the course of time. But as we think about our AA rating and the criticality of the level that we maintain our debt rating at, or our debt ratio at, we're below 70%, and we feel very comfortable with our current plan and what we're projecting for the next 5 years. As we go into the next slide, we've got our days liquidity. And again, we continue to show a robust days cash on hand. Again, this isn't a measure of dollars, but days cash on hand. Again, the measure's a bit interesting if you were to go and say that we were to get no revenues, but had our operating expenses, how many days could we operate? If you look at the end of 2023, that works out to almost over 10 months where we could operate with our cash on hand, plus our additional liquidity in terms of our lines of credit. As we look at 2024, from a COP perspective, that works to 8 months. The one piece I will highlight is we did down here at the quadruple asterisk, you can see that we did increase our lines of credit by $150 million. That would take that metric up to just under 300 days cash on hand if we include that with what was added in April. So again, we feel very comfortable. I will just highlight that the cash and investments are the orange, and then when we add the lines of credit, that's the blue. That gets us to our total number in terms of days liquidity. And again, in terms of what S&P and the other agencies will be looking at, they're looking at 150 days, and so we're well above that. We move on to the next slide, please. So good news. We've got the outcome. We've maintained the AA rating success. We're very happy and proud of that. It doesn't come without a lot of work across the organization. We meet with the agencies routinely to go through our ratings, existing debt, but then also we've been very active and will continue to be active. We expect to be in the market twice this year. And so we'll be interfacing with the agencies routinely. Again, hard work to maintain this outcome. I don't want it to come across as light. But again, we've been able to achieve the credit rating outcome for the past 5 years, as noted here, through 2023. So we're very proud of that. Go to the next slide. So we'll be looking to, hopefully we have the recommendation from the Finance Committee. We'll be looking for the board to approve this on Thursday, that we are in compliance with the elements of SD3. We go on to the next slide, please. You know, as we think about reflections, and what we'll highlight is more of the strategic implications for the organization. It's a great opportunity to highlight the importance of SD3. Hopefully we captured a portion of that at the beginning, but as we think about looking forward to the next 6 years to 2030, at that point, we'll be 10 years into our journey of a 30-year transformational period, so out through 2050. As we think about the benefits that our customer owners should be realized in terms of perfect power, customer freedom, cleaner world, this helps to facilitate that in terms of being a critical piece as it relates to some of the first principles that we are expected to deliver upon by 2050. First principle number one, ensure our communities have safe, reliable, resilient, sustainable energy sources at a reasonable cost. Again, what we're doing today in terms of keeping our costs as low as possible will impact our future generations. First principle number two, optimize the value of assets that serve our communities. Again, making sure that we're keeping our cost of our assets as low as possible. And so just in closing, as we think about 2050 and we think about the multi-generational approach that's in front of us, making sure that we've got a more affordable, more reliable, more sustainable, and more connected system for our customers and employees in the future is really what this will help to deliver. And so we're pretty excited about that as we think about the strategic implications that SD3 has for our customer owners. I'm open for questions.
Jeff, so this is not a question, but if you could go back to slide, I don't know, 4, I guess, on yours, and it shows the balancing act. I love how this ties back to our discussion this morning about risk management and how that really plays into our decision-making in these 5-year projections and this financial planning. So just really want to highlight that all of this balancing takes a lot of work, and appreciate everything that your team does in working with the ELT, monitoring risk and making sure the resources are going to places that they most need to go. So thank you for this work and I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll take a moment to talk about the ERM program just from a maturity perspective. I've been in a couple different organizations. And when you look at the maturity of our program, hats off to the folks that facilitate that, and then also across the enterprise for the input that comes together. But it's a much more mature tool. And so that makes us a much better tool as we look to use that for our COP and resource allocation. So it's a really great outcome. Hats off to the folks that facilitate that and for all of the people at the utility who make that happen.
Jeff, I heard you said that we were looking to be out in the market twice this year. And so appreciate the update here and how all of the metrics that you highlighted will influence our positive engagement with ratings agencies. Can you talk a little bit about kind of when we expect to be in the market for for debt.
Yeah, you'll see communications come out next week regarding an issuance which will go out to the market in July and close in August. Then we expect to be back in the market just after the election. And so we'll have much more clear detail out when we take that up publicly next week.
You'll get to approve that, so it'll come to the board.
Right. And then from a historic perspective, is twice in the same year, is that a standard? How frequently do we end up in the market?
Traditionally, now, you try to minimize the amount of times you're in the market. We look at not only the need for new monies, but then also refunding opportunities. And so that oftentimes plays a critical part, which it is this year, having those opportunities to do refundings. And so that's a large driver, which is pushing us more towards 2 this year versus just 1.
If you've heard the term, if you remember the term advanced refundings, that was a change that Treasury made, Congress made, to take that ability away. So now if we want to refinance existing debt, we cannot just do it anytime when the market is right. We have to wait until we are within 90 days of the next callable date. So that means we usually have to wait until the November timeframe to do any refinancings because most of our debt matures in February. So you'll have that one going on. And if Jeff's team can align the need for new money to align there, then you'll have fully wet issuance. But in this case, we're doing a lot of work. So we may need to go to the market earlier and then have to unfortunately wait until November for that refinancing.
Well, with your comment at the beginning about the balance increasing 500 million on the 6 billion total, very understandable that we are looking for new money to continue the expansion from new resources for new load. So appreciate that. And if 2 is what's the appropriate number for adventures in the market, then let's do that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments or questions?
I'll just quickly, I mean, this is our strategic directive that's focused on the financial health of the organization, right? Like it's access to credit markets, but really it's ultimately about the financial stability and health of the organization. And it seems it's nice to have a monitor report that allows us to see stability. You see that 2.0 over the course of many years and you kind of brush over it, but that's super critical to the health of the organization. So just as a reflection, I appreciate, to your point, Jeff, this is an organization-wide effort. This is not certainly culminates today with the work of you and your team, but it's an all hands and having a positive report is very, very nice for board members.
100% on the all hands. Yeah, thank you.
Just to put a little metaphor to this, we had a report about health, individual health, importance of individuals' health and organization. And I think you made reference to it in one meeting or another, Jeff, that this is money is what flows through the arteries of an organization like this. And it has to be sufficient and has to reach all the right places at all the right times. And so this is just helps to see how all this is balanced. And so really appreciate all the work that your teams do and that is done organization wide in your planning for the coming corporate operating plan as well. Thanks for reminding us. I believe that concludes Finance Committee. So what I'll just say, the committee unanimously forwards this to the board for their approval. ST3. So back to you, Chairman.
Sounds good. Thanks very much. Agenda called for lunch, but Dr. Howard, are you ready to move forward on CPE now?
Okay, we're ready. Let's go.
All right. Unless anybody wants to step right away, I think we have one more opportunity to consider either committee or lunch break before systems. But for now, if you're ready.
Yeah, we're ready. Let's do it. Okay,
Thank you.
so the Customer and Public Engagement Committee met on May 6th. We went over a legislative update, a products and services update, a development projects update, and a storm restoration and sentiment update. We brought 2 just to the board to consider today. I think the legislative update didn't change, and so there was nothing revolutionary since the close of session, so we didn't feel like we needed to rehash that. We're gonna have a development projects update in June. And so we'll go more in depth in June on that. And so for today, we just wanted to talk about the storm, the April storm and sort of the sentiment around that, and then give a products and services update. So we'll start with the storm, the April storm.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Howard. We wanted to do just a high level, and this really is a prelude to Thursday's video that the team has put together that is beautiful. Our slogan is making the invisible visible, so you will see all of the back scenes of everything that took place. While it was devastating as it came through the communities, there was blue sky for most people, right? And that's when OPPD kicks into high gear. And this is just a high level of the collaboration was off the charts. And I've been doing this a lot of years, and that's not minimizing what we've done in the past, but it was beautiful between utility operations, safety, emergency planning, supply chain, customer service and customer care, and public affairs. And so Kate Thomas, who is our Director of Corporate Marketing and Communications, orchestrated all of this behind the scenes in such a beautiful fashion. So we just wanted to do a high level before we tee it up for Thursday. Kate?
So much, Lisa. Too kind. It was truly a team effort, but thank you for the kind words. We can go ahead. We just wanted to spend a few minutes recapping for the board and for those who are watching what really happened over our restoration efforts. And we'll share it a much more poetic way in a video on Thursday. But just to have a quick recap of how these restoration efforts occurred. So on Friday, April 26th, we saw our peak of outages, just over 10,000. And some of these numbers are probably approximate as we've gotten more clarity over the coming days. And we know that there was significant progress each day until there was 100% restoration for those homes that could be and businesses that could be restored by Tuesday. That's really monumental. What's unique when you see something like 10,000 outages is not the number. We've seen bigger outages. We know that, but given the intensity of the event and just the devastating damage to so many people's homes and businesses, we were just very proud at the speed and safe focus that we showed throughout. We also knew that with this dynamic of play, that it could be quick restoration, especially given the fact that there were many homes who had underground lines. Very thorough, quick, and ongoing communication would be needed. Go to the next slide. So what we do? We applied all the lessons learned that we have over the past few years. For better or for worse, we've had some increasing experience with restoration events. And so 3 primary areas that you can see are ways that we really try to boost our efforts. One, immediately having early, frequent, often, and graphic heavy updates across all channels. I'm very grateful for being part of an organization who aligns really closely with the National Weather Service. And so my team, along with many of the other operations teams, are always on those webinars, communicating as quickly as possible, making sure that people understand how we're preparing for what may come. We also really credit our continual collaboration with our community partners. So huge shout out to our customer service organization, to Todd McLaughlin and Wendell Young, who are keeping in close contact with the city mayor's office. Todd, who was co-located with Douglas County Emergency Management, and really feeding us great information. So we're able to effectively either participate or be part of in the audience, the news conference that went out. And then finally, we did real-time development of very practical and event-specific material for broad use. Now, this is something I laugh, it seems really mundane, but we have found is one of those kind of quiet things that makes a difference in response. That we have so much great base educational material, but what we find over and over is that every event is unique. And we need to be poised with all team members, designers, everyone on board to very quickly put event-specific restoration type of material together, and then use that with all of the many channels and megaphones that we have across all of our partnerships. So that was really helpful and key to our approach. Next. And we'll just go through this. You'll see even more detail. These are just a few of the ways that we saw customers respond. So in recent memory, I would say that
we saw the most positive response. We, hate that for such a devastating event, but we were really appreciative of our customers noticing commitment and our commitment to our community. That's what we really hoped that the community saw, that we were walking the talk and making really visual how committed we are to, making their lives a little bit better after so devastating. We'll go through the last one. We'll just conclude. We talked about some of the things that worked well. What can we always get better at? I think we're in a really interesting point with our transition around our customer communication and technology. We've got some fantastic things, on the horizon, especially as we get technology that supports AMI. And so in that interim, what we're always looking at is how do we evolve our process to get really accurate ETRs to customers in a targeted way? And right now that is art more than it is science, but we learn and we're getting even more insight into how we do that. We're also evaluating new ways to target communication to those who are seeing different levels of impact. Sometimes that's something as simple as targeting by circuit on next door, we find. So it's a little bit of trial and error finding what's really working for everyone, but that's been a fantastic tool. And then finally, it's really just evolving those internal processes. Again, things are event specific. So as we see new events, we try to modify and improve what's worked and what's been specific for that specific event. And that's just a snapshot of what our efforts looked like from a communication perspective. Can't wait to tell the story a little bit more visually on Thursday, but I just want to thank everyone and everyone across the organization who helped rally and get our power restored so quickly. That is all. Thank you.
Questions for Kate?
I have a couple of comments, if I may. Thank you, Kate, for the thorough review. So this worked the way it was supposed to work, not the tornado part, but the restoration part. It was not surprising, but it was reaffirming to see the teams come together, the emergency operations team and then the storm restoration teams, and all working the way we've designed this to work. It was inspiring. Focus on safety is always important, and I have to report that we came out with a couple of incidents. You saw all the debris. We had one injury where one of our employees stepped on a nail. Right, you're going in through destruction, right? So that was a reported injury, and we had a couple of other incidents. No human affection, but there were a couple of incidents with our vehicles. When we're working so closely together, the tornado hit a very specific path. We had crews almost literally working on top of each other, so safety became an important issue. I do want to call out mutual aid. We call our neighbors, and when we called, they responded, just like we always do. And in this case, MPPD crews, Loop Power crews, Ellie Myers, Brick crews, public utilities and private companies coming and helping out so that we could restore. So we couldn't have done these without their help. I want to call that out. A lot of attention was paid at the earlier hours of the event on making sure that our critical infrastructure was brought back in place. There were schools, there were hospitals who lost power. There were some incidents at the airport, as you probably saw in the videos. The airport itself didn't sustain any damage, but just across the runway, tornado tore down hangars. And so it was very important for us to make sure that we had all the airport back online on a timely manner. As you can imagine, I was on the phone with the mayor of Omaha, with Governor Pillin many times during the process. The governor called, and we actually had a really nice working partnership with the governor's office, where the governor asked President Biden for disaster declaration so that we could be eligible for FEMA funds. And I am very proud to report that that's part of the early information we were able to gather. Our teams are on the ground right away, and so we were able to put that information together, and I think that contributed to getting that additional federal funding. The last thing I will say, and I'll just take a moment to thank all of our employees, not only linemen, but everyone who worked around the clock on these. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about making the invisible visible. There are about 200 to 300 employees right now who have been working long hours, long weeks, long days on our generation side of the house. We don't see them. The public doesn't see the orange OPPD trucks, restoring power, but we have between 200 and 300 employees who have been working for now a couple of months on 3 outages. They're inside the walls of Nebraska City Station, North Omaha Station, and Cass County Station. They are also true heroes that need to be recognized. Their families are suffering because they don't see their loved ones. Their moms, their dads, their spouses are at work, making sure that our turbines, our power plants are come out of the outage season on time, on schedule, so that we can enjoy having those units online in the summer. We typically don't talk about them, but since we're talking about the dedication of everyone, I wanted to take the opportunity. Thank you for that.
It's wonderful. I really advocated for bringing this update to the all committees more because I think we've had multiple restoration events and we've learned lessons from them. And this one in particular shows that we're applying all of those lessons learned, right? Especially in a customer and public engagement setting. We've had previous questions at events where it's been like, well, what are you telling elected officials, or how are we interacting with everybody? And this sort of ended up being one of those events where everything kind of went right, or we used everything that we had learned previously. So I'm glad we could have this conversation here. Thank you, Kate. Okay, we'll pass it over to Tim for a products and services update.
Good morning, everyone. So a funny story about this presentation. It's a little bit of a running joke inside of our group of all the folks that were involved in bringing this together. And we talked about giving this presentation, and one conflict or another came up. And then as a result of being ahead on the schedule, here I am. I also want to give some context to this. So as you go through this presentation, this one will be specifically about one new program that's being developed. And as you'll see on one of the slides, the number of customers that we anticipate being affected are relatively small. And I want to call that out from a standpoint of in the product and program world. I think of it as a patchwork puzzle, so to speak, in that there are large pieces of work and large programs like cool smart programs and smart thermostat and business curtailable that will be. Britain's right now thinking he had perfect timing. He doesn't know we're going to do a hot handoff, so come on. But there are large and small programs. I'd see this one as one of those glue and connective tissue products and programs that helps complete an offering of customers. And you'll see here on their ability to do, for select customers, on their ability to do improvements in their small business or home around energy efficiency. And it's an important piece. I would also note and call out and ask you look for the partnership here. This isn't a case where there are some times when we have to kind of do it on our own. This is a case where we didn't have to, and we've got a great partnership with other entities to provide a needed niche to bring this sort of product and program to the fore. So welcome, Britton, just in the nick of time, our manager of advocacy solutions in our product development and marketing team.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. All right. Good afternoon, Board of Directors, or good morning, actually. Aaron, we can go to the next slide here. So today we're going to go ahead and provide an update on the dollar energy savings and loan program that we launched approximately a month and a half ago in partnership with the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy. So today I'm going to provide an update on this project, the solution and how it benefits our customers, and the process on how we landed with the solution, and really what our path forward is. Go to the next slide, please. So just a little bit of background about energy efficiency financing. So at OPPD, energy efficiency financing has been talked about as a solution for our customers for a number of years. This is something that we want to offer our customers to help out with adoption of current products and programs, and also assist our customers with affordability and participating in energy efficiency improvements. Throughout the industry, energy efficiency financing is considered in two classifications: traditional, which is on-bill financing, where our customers, they can actually finance their energy efficiency improvements on their bill, or non-traditional is when they work with a third-party lender and they can make their payments through that third party. One thing I want to note is OPPD does have a current opportunity with C&I customers only, to where we do promote some financing for some energy related improvements, but that's not available for our residential consumers today. So with that being said, can we go to the next slide? So a key thing with this effort is that we really focus on doing in-depth analysis on what the solution could be for our customers. Throughout the industry, there are utilities that are offering energy efficiency financing programs, both traditional and non-traditional. We met with utilities across the industry. We also interviewed experts in energy efficiency financing. ESI, which is a consulting firm that specializes in on-bill financing programs for utility. We worked with them, et cetera. The other thing is, from an industry perspective, we really wanted to see what the burden was and how much work it took for utilities to stand up programs and what that administrative weight was. We learned within this industry research, there's not one size fits all. It really was curtailed to the local level environment. From a customer perspective, we did qualitative and quantitative research with our customers. Our customers liked the idea of a financing solution because it promoted accessibility and affordability to energy efficiency improvements. Key finding is that they didn't see us as necessarily a vehicle. They were surprised that we were looking at this, but excited that, hey, this could be an opportunity. From a finance perspective, so Tim alluded to this partnership, we talked to banks locally about what would be an opportunity to partner with on-bill financing. Okay, we talked to state governments. We also looked at grant opportunities on the federal level. What would it look like for us to be able to stand up a financing solution for our customers? Then from a regulatory and legal perspective, we wanted to make sure within the public power framework of Nebraska, whether or not this is a viable solution for us to offer our customers. Can we go to the next slide, please? So within this project, we evaluated 5 different models to introduce and evaluate energy efficiency financing. So I talked about traditional on-bill. This is where our customers, we looked at 3 different options for our customers to go that would allow our customers to finance energy efficiency improvements and whether or not that's feasible. So we looked at OPPD funded, OPPD administered, third-party funded, third-party administered, OPPD blended funding with a third-party and third-party administered. This is where our customers could go ahead and pay for those financing charges on their bill. Then we looked at non-traditional. I'll bring back up the industry research. There are utilities across the industry that just literally have a bank referral on their website with the rebate programs as a third-party solution. And then we looked at opportunity for blended, OPPD funding, third-party funded, third-party administered. The one thing I want to back up a little bit here is that we evaluated this through a cross-functional team across OPPD on the options. So we looked at accessibility for our customers. How accessible would it be? Satisfaction, messaging and marketing. How well could we message and market the solution to our customers? Environmental impact, meaning achieving the most savings for our customers. Employee impact, the administrative burden that this would be for us to administer and the ease of being able to roll out a program. Revenue and expenses. So what's the cost burden to offering a solution like this here at OPPD? So with this criteria and these concepts, the highest score is going to blended approach. And can we go to the next slide, please? Which landed us down the path of infusing funding into NDE's, the Nebraska Department of Environment of Energy Dollar Energy and Savings Loan Program. So OPPD has invested $500,000 in this program. Banks and NDE also put funding to open up a pot of $1.4 million available for our customers. So what's the benefit? Our customers will have access to low interest loans. We know the banking climate is rough right now from an interest rate perspective. Our customers will have access to 3% or less interest loans to make energy related improvements such as weatherization, lighting, appliances. When they're upgrading their HVAC system, solar, residential solar. The other part of this is that they'll be able to have payment terms up to 15 years. And another important thing as we kind of look to the future, as we continue to look at additional energy efficiency solutions for our customers, this makes this more accessible for our middle class customers that can't afford the upfront cost of energy efficiency improvements to their home. Another piece is that we wanted this to be focused on residential customers, but we also want to start promoting solutions for our SMB customers to make energy efficiency improvements to their home that don't have that upfront capital to make that investment through their current business model. So moving forward to the next slide, I want to talk about the customer journey. So our customers, when we were developing the solution in partnership with NDE, we wanted to make this seamless as possible and try to be as transparent as possible. But the one thing is our customers, they can identify a project within the scope of the measures that I'd outlined in the parameters of the program, and they can obtain quotes, but we don't want them to sign any paperwork. We need them to go through the application process to make sure they're approved. And once they're approved, then they can go forward and execute on the project. We can go to the next slide. I think that I want to talk about is how we're promoting and what our next steps are with this solution. So you can go to oppd.com/energy savings loans, and this program is currently available on our website. The other thing is we're cross promoting the solution within our rebate pages and energy efficiency pages on the website. So when somebody goes to look at our weatherization rebates, this solution is being promoted as an opportunity to make that product more accessible to our customers. The other thing is, where do we go forward from here? We're going to monitor this solution. We need it to start somewhere. And this is an avenue for us to start offering a financing solution to our customers, explore the product market fit, see how our customers respond to this, the profile from the residential perspective and the SMB customer perspective, and really set the stage on where we go forward, moving with offering energy efficiency financing for our customers in the future. So with that being said, we'll go to the next slide and open up for some questions.
Are there any questions for Britton? Really excited about
I know, me too.
I have.
Britton, yeah,
Yeah.
this is great. You've done it again.
Yeah,
Yeah, in a good way.
kudos to the team that did the work on this.
Right.
Like, great employees, great cross-functional team that spent a lot of time on this. I just get to share the positive update here. So
And to be fair, I think Sarah and Brittany were supposed to
Yes.
present, and I think the timing didn't work out. But
yeah,
lesson for us to learn. We'll have the team ready in case we run early. So if I'm a customer, what barriers do you foresee on these ones? So let's say I'm a customer and my credit score is not great. I don't have typically if I were to go to a bank, getting financing would be hard. What type of barriers or headaches am I potentially going to counter here?
yeah, great question. So there's still going to be that bank approval that's going to factor in the credit scores. So with this solution, we're still going to struggle with that from an accessibility and affordability perspective. So that's where, as we look at our current portfolio that we have for promoting energy efficiency products and services, this is where, hey, where can we develop solutions to help fill that gap and continue to look at that? Yes, it's going to help the middle class, but those that don't have good credit, this is something that is going to be hard for them to access because they're going to have to be able to pass that standard credit check.
That was important because I read in the benefits for OPPD, it's a minimal risk, less than 1% average default rate, which is correlated to the higher credit quality. And I think that's, as we learn from this program and as the board gives us resources to do more, I think this is the trade-off, is that appetite for a higher default rate in exchange for reaching out to people who would otherwise wouldn't qualify. At the end of the day, it's absolutely not for free, right? What OPPD is getting in exchange is helping us manage load, reduce energy usage, help customers reduce their bill. And so it's all great. I'm really interested in figuring out what we learn from this program and how do we expand the pool of potential applicants in the future.
I think one of the things, Javier, to that point, that the management team and the board will hear more of going forward is I want to reiterate 2 points. One that Britton made is this is a start, right? That'll get our feet wet and enable us or put us in a position to expand it. The other is active conversations going on now around how we engage customers more deeply in promoting resource adequacy and promoting conservation and demand side management resources. Britton and I and the team are having active conversations about how do we have an outsized impact or adoption with our low and moderate income customers around those programs. And that's, we recognize that as an opportunity, and probably $1 saved there means much more than $1 saved for many other customers. So that's an intense focus right now. We're trying some shifts in how we do things, and there'll be more to come about that. But I wanted to signal that's an acknowledged area of opportunity that we're focusing on real heavily.
In the past, when we've talked about this, kind of the knee-jerk response was, well, OPPD is not a bank. And I think this is a great compromise to that perception, is that this can give us ability to have this program, but not have this on our bills and be the collector of the principal and interest on the loan. So I think this is a great
Yeah, and
what we had heard in the past.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out is like, we've really wanted this to be a partnership. And even when we're having conversations with banks locally, like this isn't something that's been talked about. Yeah, there's the NDE program, but what does it look like for utilities to partner? So this is a step in the right direction to prove that, hey, we can partner in providing low interest energy efficiency opportunities for our customers. And I think it'll set a path forward. So
thank you.
So on the logistics, these are functionally private loans, and they are, I guess so they'll stay with the individual if they move.
that's correct.
Okay, and then from the funding, I heard you say 500,000 OPPD and 1.4 from NDE, 1.4 million, is that right?
Yeah, so it's 1.4 million total. So there's the $500,000 of OPPD funding, and then it's a blending between NDE's funding and also the bank funding. So there's a bank contribution. The bank contributes a third of that 1.4 million.
Okay, great. And then I guess last point there, the slide indicates revolving funds. So our 5,000 contribution is helping to capitalize the revolving loan funds that will be lent out and then come back in for future projects. Is that roughly right?
Yeah, so as customers get approved for loans and they start making payments, that goes back into the pot of money. So, the one thing is we're going to monitor uptick in application and use of these funds, and whether or not we will look at opportunity to expand and see what that revolving funding looks like as we get more investment and more participation.
Great. So a couple more here. So 3%, that's below market rate interest. So is this also an interest rate buy down upfront with capital from either us or the banks?
Yeah, so what it is that with the pool of money that's available, the banks, when they approve the loan, they can offer a lower interest due to that risk being spread across 3 funding partners, is what the model is. So essentially, yes, but it's the blended pool of money that helps offer that lower interest rate because the bank upfront isn't taking all of the financial burden. It's a pool of money. And that's how the NDE dollar energy savings loan program works.
So then the other fund, yeah, NDE and OPPD funding is something to backstop that, like a loan loss reserve. I mean, there's a lot of different types of programs here. This sounds like it's a combination of 3 different things happening simultaneously.
Yeah, and I can't speak to that fully, and we can follow up with more detail about what that exactly looks like.
And I guess all of the question here goes to something that Javier just pointed out, that as the board provides more resources to continue this, I guess I'm interested in where our funding is going. And as we look to future COP recommendations, you know, when we, would this appear as an additional item that we could increase the funding and thereby increase the number of customers who are eligible to participate in the program through this mechanism? And I guess I'm not sure if, I don't mean that to be a question that, you know, needs an answer right away, but
We will learn from these.
Right.
And we've done this with other programs. Sometimes we launch something and then we realize at the end of the year, it really didn't take off as we thought it was gonna take off, and we made adjustments. I think on this one, if we see the demand strong where we ran out of funds, this is where we come back and you would see a line item. If you don't see it, we'll call it out. On additional funding.
Great. Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad to see this type of a new creative financial solution available to help people get access to affordable energy efficiency and clean energy upgrades. That's excellent. Thank you.
What's the demand reduction that you're hoping to achieve with this?
Yeah, so based on existing customers that have participated in the NDE program, there's been approximately an 8% average electricity reduction annually. So that's what we're forecasting. But with our expanded measure, like that is something like if somebody applies for a solar project, it's gonna look different. That current 8% number is based on just energy efficiency improvements. But the key thing about this program, we wanted to have measures that were attractive to our entire customer base, whether you're a rural customer, living in Omaha, whatever that looks like. We wanted to make sure this was attractive. So we wanted to have a lot of options for them. So when they're looking at making these improvements, like, hey, if you want to have residential solar, or hey, I need a new heat pump, they can utilize this opportunity. So.
Can you speak to the way in which you came to 57? And if it just seems like 57 across 1.4 is quite a bit of money lended to those 57 folks.
Yep, I can expound on that. So we base that on a residential project number of $30,000 per project. And then for SMB, it was up to $70,000 per project. That's where not every project's going to be that amount, but we needed to calculate something based on if we look at installing a residential rooftop solar and the cost versus doing a true full home weatherization retrofit, we wanted to be really conservative in that number. As we said, what the initial impact could be.
Thank you.
One more. So some of the matches from NDE, is this part of a federal program that they were able to partner with us, or is this money that they're going to take out of some other program?
Yeah, great question. So this is actually a state authorized program.
Okay.
And so to your question, this money is protected that they invested in it. So that money is not going to go anywhere specifically.
So it's not part of the federal program that came down through one of the.
Okay. Yeah, this partnership opportunity that we're launching is exclusively for our customers, but NDE has had this program itself. I believe the existing program, the interest rate is hovering around 12%. And as a result of our partnership, we can get that down to 3%.
Excellent.
I just want to say, I really appreciate the manner in which you evaluated these concepts. I think it's so thorough, looking at other plans, asking customers what they wanted, talking with partners. You're going to gather just an enormous amount of information from this pilot. So just great work in creating this product. Thank you.
Any final thoughts? Any other questions? Right, hearing none, CPE rests.
Great. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Britton.
Okay, so as previously indicated, now we have another decision point. Would we like to continue with the systems committee now? And if so, I think that means probably just going all the way through the rest of the agenda and then eating afterward, or would you like to break and have lunch? Anyone strong feelings one way or the other? Yes.
That's fine.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, all right, with that, we'll plan 40 minutes, 12:35 return from lunch.
Yeah, upstairs on the ninth floor.
Yep, sounds good. All right. Thanks very much, everyone. All right. Welcome back from lunch, everyone. Next on the agenda is the Systems Management and Nuclear Oversight Committee. Director Moody.
Thank you, Chair Williams. The Systems Management Nuclear Oversight Committee met on May 1st. All were in attendance. You see the agenda up in front of you. A couple things to highlight from discussion. We've talked about two from the Finance Committee report, so I'll buzz over that. We had a quick claim settlement report. The things that I want to highlight here, actually, it's the Finance Committee agenda.
Yeah, it is. Oh.
Financial report. Okay, I can do this. So we did talk about the transmission service formula rate protocols, but that was on finance. We had a large project update, so that was the committee heard updates on the status for Standing Bear and thank you, Turtle Creek, and also the decommissioning project at Fort Calhoun. I've got it in front of me.
Okay.
Thank you. More than anything, that was us hearing about status of how that work is going, how it's nearing completion, and a couple updates on how our partners are performing. Thank you, Aaron. So it was good for the committee to kind of get an update on the status of those projects. The other thing that I want to talk about here is agenda item number 4, near-term generation resource plan oversight. When we passed the near-term generation plan, about a year ago, one of the things that was called for in that resolution, and I'm going to read from the resolution in the now therefore section, was that the committee would, no later than October 31st, 2023, leverage the board's current policy governance framework to establish a process by which the board will exercise its duty of oversight of the near-term generation resource plan execution through the identification of key performance indicators and subsequent targets and monitoring of progress. I had reason to pull that up a month ago when we were going through, I believe it was SD9, and I found myself thinking, did we really kind of bring that home as a committee? So that's the reason I wanted to bring it back for discussion as a committee. In short, we're for the most part squared away. You will recall as part of the near-term generation resolution, it had that table in there that talked about the milestones for when we will bring generation online. Those are the key performance indicators. That's the thing. And I think what we concluded as we went through and had this discussion is that we'll continue to bring that table forward so that the board has pretty consistent oversight and updates on what's going on. So it's a good conversation. And I do feel like now we really kind of landed the plane on it, which was good for the committee. And then last on SD7, that was nothing more than Mr. Fleener bringing the update that the schedule that we've got. So for line of sight for all of us, the anticipation is that the draft version of an SD7 update will come to the Systems Management Oversight, Nuclear Oversight Committee on June 10th. And I believe the plan is to take the same update to the Finance Committee, if I remember correctly. That's exactly right. Both committees will get an opportunity to see it. And then we'll kind of have a stage gate there that we'll have an opportunity to either bring it to the public or continue the conversation. But that's the next big milestone for us. Okay. That's it for the chair's report. If we want to go back to the deck. Now we've got a nuclear oversight committee quarterly report. Here we go.
We have Tim.
Yep.
To give us that.
Good afternoon, Tim Ewing, decommissioning director, Fort Calhoun Station. Go to the pictures, please. We'll just skip right past the words. So we've got a series of about 3 different slides here with some pictures that help illustrate the type of work that we've got going on currently. This first one shows one of our steam generators. There's 2 that were installed in the system, so we still have 1 to go after this. The picture on the left shows where that large gray object is the steam generator in its installed position. We had to pound through a concrete wall and remove several steel beams to get to that view. And if you look at the picture on the right, that's that steam generator now down in a horizontal position so that we can remove it from containment. And then the picture in the bottom is the generator on a special transport. So that generator does weigh about 500,000 pounds and with the diameter between 10 and 15 feet. So the top portion, which is the wider portion at 15 feet, too wide to be shipped as is. So we took it on that trailer to another building on site, and we're effectively removing the top portion and cutting it up into smaller pieces, which should be shipped up by rail. And then the bottom piece is small enough to be shipped on rail by itself. That work is going really well. It's actually slightly ahead of schedule and it's being done safely.
Tim, real quick, on the left, it's standing, on the right, it's laying down.
Okay, your left, sorry, my bad.
Oh, no, sorry, the follow-up question
Oh,
is
yeah,
just,
yeah.
it seems to be laying on maybe a pile of dirt. Was it lowered or pushed over?
It was tipped over.
Was it restrained on the way down?
We use, no, we use hydraulic jacks to help push the top portion out 5 feet. And then we used the cable on an excavator and pulled it over the rest of the way. And the dirt pile is there as kind of a cushion to land on. And that was well engineered so that it wouldn't damage the generator, but that is the part that's being cut up. For a little extra context, the shell that you see on the outside is about 4.5 inches thick. So it's some pretty substantial steel.
Is there a video of that?
There is.
I'd be interested to see that.
I can work with Aaron.
Excellent, thank you.
More than the videos, the audio.
There's not much boom to it. I was standing out there. It was a little bit boring, which is exactly what we wanted.
Glad to hear it.
Underwhelming.
I was gonna share, right, so other plants have been decommissioned and had to walk through this, so there's some tried and tested ways of delivering on this type of works.
Definitely.
Great, thank you.
Next slide, please. So the motor that you see in there, kind of that blue-gray motor, is one of our reactor coolant pump motors. We have 4 of those. And so you can kind of see its evolution of being removed. But what I really wanted to include these pictures for is so that you can see the demo work on the walls. So the picture on the left where you start to see some silver there, that wall was the wall that was behind the generator. So we've got to get through that wall and another couple to get to the next one. And the other thing that you see is there's all sorts of rebar embedded in that concrete. So going back to the safety piece, as you know, this is as controlled as it is when you hit a piece of concrete with a hydraulic hammer, right? So there's chipping, there's rebar that you have to shear off of the hydraulic shear or torches. It's some very intense work. And I can't say enough about the folks in the field each day that are doing it safely. So this, again, going really well. We're getting through those walls as quick or slightly faster than we anticipated. But there's a whole lot of work then to start removing that material and working our way down when it's the right time for that. And all of that will take effectively the rest of this year.
Can you talk just on the rebar piece? Because this is not new. We've been demolishing structures like that, and it has resulted in a few minor delays, but it's certainly the surprise when you open things up and you see it's almost a solid sheet of metal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little bit of concrete around. It's quite substantial.
And it's not little rebar, it's rebar like this, right? So it's some thick stuff. And we knew that going in, but until you actually start tearing into it, you're just going off drawings. And as good as those were from 50 years ago. So a little bit of discovery along the way. And then the next one. So this is the pressurizer, which helped to maintain pressure inside the reactor coolant system. The picture on the right is it being removed from its installed location. And there's always been a crane inside a containment. That's the item that's used to lift it. The picture to the left is as we start to move that towards the containment opening. And then it in a controlled vertical position, we just laid it down nicely. And so it's still big, it's 125,000 pounds, but significantly smaller than the steam generator. We have already shipped this piece of equipment off last week, I believe, went out or the week before, on a special rail car. And that went off for disposal in Utah, where the rest of our equipment, or most of the rest of our equipment, has gone to. Outside of containment, there's plenty of work going on as well. It just doesn't make for as good of pictures. We've had a lot of interaction with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission since we were here last. They've been on site for 2 of their routine inspections. During those inspections, they watch this type of work. They watch our technicians doing radiological surveys. They actually have their own independent subcontractor that comes to site that does independent radiological surveys as well in the same areas that we do, to make sure that the work we're performing, they can verify is being done correctly. And we had a public meeting as a pre-submittal meeting for the first phase of the documentation for our eventual release of the license. We expect there's 4 or 5 phases, but the first phase is in. So we are on our way to starting to prove that the site is clean and can be used for additional uses. Still a couple of years away, but and a lot of work to get there. We're moving along nicely. So from that standpoint, as I would wrap it up, we are building a little bit of margin inside of containment, so we continue on schedule, on track from when I was here last. Still would expect to be at substantial completion by the 3rd quarter of 2026. From a budget standpoint, we remain on track to our original estimate. And I've said it a few times, but I feel it's worth saying one more time, just because of the type of work that's going on. That work's being done safely, and that's one of the reasons that we can continue to meet our schedule and our budget, because we're doing the work safely. And that's all I have, pending any questions. Thank you.
Good, thank you. No, that's it. Well done. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Always interesting. Okay. The storied history of our business there. Now let's talk about the future of our business with AMI.
Excellent, thank you. We have Aaron Smith coming up. Many of you are familiar with Aaron. He's our Director of Distributed Device Strategy, and there's a lot of things going on the distribution system to bring a lot of new functionality and enable customer freedom and more perfect power. And Aaron's here to give us an update. Thanks, Aaron.
All right, thanks, Brad. Good afternoon, everyone. Here to kind of give a brief update on our progress across the AMI program. So take a look at our agenda. We'll talk a little bit about next generation grid, which is kind of the new name for our enterprise priority around AMI and a whole bunch of other stuff. We'll talk through one of our program risks, which is dependency management, and one of the ways that we're working to mitigate that. We'll also go through what we call the solution confirmation sessions and why those are so valuable and so important. We'll also get into a little bit of meter testing in our meter lab. And then finally, I'll provide a spotlight on the field service management effort that we're going through. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about next steps and things to come. So if you look across kind of, this used to say two-way communication and engagement, which that's still very much the core of what we're doing, the two-way communication with our customers, but it's also much broader than that. And so we feel this new name helps to capture that better with the breadth of really what we're doing. As you'll see on the left side, there's 7 kind of boulder sized technology projects, 7 or even 9, depending on how you count them, because in the AMI, there's sort of the meters, the network, and then all the back end. So 7 to 9 kind of boulder sized technology projects. We also, you'll see on the right-hand side, some of the complementary efforts. The rate design project specifically, AMI is going to enable all kinds of possibilities in that space. Our FERC 2222, which was also added into the next generation grid. And if you'll recall, that's kind of related to aggregation and allowing aggregators to come in to our system, and we can also be aggregated ourselves. And then finally, the stakeholder engagement and customer engagement is super, super important as we go into this. Last time I was here, we talked a little bit about identifying our pilot areas. And so now we're in the process of developing our detailed communication plans on what that looks like based on the makeup of those pilot areas and the concerns that those customers may have, and the community engagement that we have in those areas. So we're in the process of building that. If you'll go to the next slide. So with a program of this size, dependency management is extremely important. And one of the tools that we have in our tool chest is what we call the walk the wall session. And this is where each project manager across those 9 projects walks through the schedule. That's why it's called walk the walls. You'll see kind of the photo there. We've got little stickies and pieces of paper all over the walls of the room. And it allows us to walk through the schedule and then emphasize those key milestones and dependencies so that everyone has a common understanding across, right? There's a lot of projects going. This is a huge effort. And so it's a really great tool. And through that exercise, we were able to uncover some additional dependencies as well. And it allows us to get a clearer picture of what the critical is across all these projects, and then set the stage for the next version of our integrated program schedule. If you'll go to the next slide, please. So this is a little bit of a graphic around dependency. So we have about 170 different dependencies across these projects. And you'll see there's kind of by colored, the blue are the incoming dependencies. So that means that, you know, project A is waiting for something on project B to complete it. They're waiting on a milestone before they can begin their work. The outgoing is where project A is waiting on project B, for example, and you have to complete that milestone in order for the other project to move forward. And then we have kind of the sync where both really need to be aligned, and those activities need to take place concurrently between the two efforts. And as you'll see, they're really spread fairly evenly across the entire ecosystem of projects in this case. So as you'll see, you know, effective dependency management, it requires not only the capture and analysis of these. And so our program is using a tool called Smartsheet to document the project schedules and then aggregate them up into our integrated program schedule. And then we're able to make that visible across the entire program. That transparency is really important. And then we also have developed a process for project changes, because a change in one space has the potential to impact all the other, you know, 8 projects across here. And so we've developed that process very carefully to understand, is this just a project change that has limited impact, or is this project change going to impact the entire program as we go forward? And so we know that this is something that's going to constantly change. We're going to have to keep analyzing this. It's a great opportunity for organizational learning as we're stepping through here. It's kind of like with anything, the more you know about something, the more you realize you don't know about something. Kind of an example, my brother's a pharmacist at a cardiology clinic. So every time I talk medicine with him, I think in general, I kind of understand it. And then every time it just blows my mind, like there's so much I don't understand in this space. So kind of the same way here, where the more we dig into this, the more we uncover. And it's kind of that continuous improvement, continuous learning as we go through. If you'll go to the next slide. So another really cool, I'll call it tool that we have in our program execution kit is the solution confirmation. And so this is a key opportunity to understand, is what we're building going to meet all of our goals and requirements? And so the team walks through all of our future state processes. And we've designed hundreds of new processes. And through these sessions, we've walked through all those. And what's really cool about these sessions is they're led by the OPPD team members stepping through. Here's what the future is going to look like. We've engaged 2 great strategic partners, and they've been awesome to work with. But what I'm really proud of is OPPD leading these efforts instead of just, hey, here's from consultant, hey, here's your new process, go do it. It's us building that together with them and really getting that buy-in as we go. The other piece is it allows us to collect feedbacks on the process designs. You know, did we miss a key scenario? Is something not captured correctly? And then finally, it allows the team to kind of build that excitement and commitment with knowing like, hey, here's the future. This is going to be so much better. We're eliminating all these manual paper processes. Things are going to be automated. Things are going to be digitized, and kind of paint that picture. And so we've completed several of these sessions across the entire ecosystem over the past couple of months. You'll go to the next one, please. So one of the other things that we do is we walk through these And both these and the business process design sessions, we're able to capture what are the important things that are changing. And so we know, this is an example from our AMI solution confirmation session itself of, in the field, it's going to require less truck rolls. We're not going to have to drive to get the reads. We'll have the data at our fingertips. We'll be able to have much more information as we go to troubleshoot problems. It also opens up new opportunities for customers. AMI is going to provide a wealth of data and functionality that will allow us to create new rates, new programs, new products and services as we move forward. And then finally, the new utility capabilities of the fact that we're integrating all of these, 9 kind of systems or efforts across is going to make it really, really powerful. We're going to know when there's outages from the meters, and that will get into our outage management system so we can take action on it. The billing process and understanding customer bills is going to be much smoother. And then also we'll be able to have, improved information about our grid. These, as I've mentioned before, these are really grid sensors we're putting out there that also happen to be meters. And so we're going to have a lot more information. We go to the next one, please. So some exciting news. Our first set of meters have arrived, which is really cool. It makes it feel very, very real. We got our first set of 16 meters, and these are the ones that will go on our mesh network, which is generally going to be our metropolitan areas. So we completed our testing, it's called product configuration, acceptance testing, or PCA testing. And what that is us verifying all the settings we want in the meters from day one when they're shipped. So when they come here, they're ready to kind of plug in, plug and play. They're all set up the way we need. Now our system will have the ability to change those settings over the air if we need to, but we want to make sure that day one they're right and they're the way we want. So we've completed that, and then we're putting in our order this week for that first group of the 10,000 for soft launch. A portion of that will also be receiving the cellular meters around June, and then begin that testing piece, and then get that order in place as well. And it's important that we get those orders in. It's a fairly long lead time, kind of 36 to 40 weeks on the meters. So that's definitely significant. And that's why we're ordering them now to be well ahead of.
Can you remind folks of the difference between the mesh network and cellular meters?
Yeah, absolutely. So the mesh network itself is, it's operates on radio signals, and it meshes. In other words, it allows to, if a meter needs to hop to another meter or to a router to get to a collector, it can do that. Most of the time, the meters will go directly to that collector or gateway. But what it allows for is if we do have power outages or something is wrong with a certain collector, the signals can reroute themselves and go to a different collector if they need to make a couple hops to get over to another one. So it really provides a great level of reliability for that communication network that, individual pieces can go down and all the signals can still flow back to us. And versus the cellular, which is a direct path. So we have a lot of our rural areas that are maybe, a meter a mile or every couple miles. So a mesh in that area is not really realistic. It's not going to be able to hop that far. So we're going with a direct cellular solution. It's a multi-carrier solution that can hop on the strongest signal, whether that's Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, whoever in that space. So that's a little bit of the difference in the communications path. So we've tested the mesh ones. We should be receiving the cellular ones in June, and we'll proceed with that testing there. Also, just in general with these meters, it's going to be, as I mentioned, that grid edge sensor. It's really kind of a high-powered computer. So if we can analyze much better what's happening on the system to allow us to troubleshoot, and then really build on analytics and kind of even, like AI is the big hot buzzword, right? But we're doing that now. It's built into a lot of these systems we're buying, and we'll be able to optimize that as we go forward. And as that technology and the machine learning gets even better, we may be able to even better know when something happens. Oh, that's probably a tree, or that's probably an animal, or that looks like an underground fault. And really be able to maybe proactively prevent outages as well by seeing kind of the first inklings of something going on going forward. And that's where we'll use that kind of analytics and AI capabilities.
The other piece that's super important, I think, on that same topic, it's from the consumer perspective, consumer end, the ability that consumers at some point may have, customer owners, to also analyze their own usage. It's not just a house or a business, but within that house, whether this is talking directly to the appliance or to the switchboard, and know within your home what's using more or less energy when. So the same intelligence we're gaining on the system, I think that something that excites me is that it's something similar could happen with the customer owner. They're managing of their energy in a way that we've never provided before.
Excellent point. I'm glad you brought that up because the meters that we're buying, Landis and Gear has that capability built into it, and they have a partnership with a company called Sense. They have lots of different partnerships, but this one where it can act as kind of looking kind of through your panel to understand which loads are on, which ones are coming on, and be able to analyze that, even that next deeper level. And that's something that's built in with these meters. The meters have a Wi-Fi. Can hop on the home Wi-Fi, and the customer can then pull up an app and really see in real time and dig in. That's one of the pieces we'll be piloting as part of our soft launch. And assuming that goes really well, that's something we can deploy a lot more widely. If you'll go to the next slide. So one of the things I wanted to highlight for this quarterly update is our field service management tool. We're implementing a tool from a company called SEW, and it's called Smart Mobile Workforce. And so what this is and what this will do will allow us to manage our kind of, if you think about kind of our everyday scheduled type work that happens day in and day out. And some of that today we do electronically. Some of that is still done on paper packets that we print out, hand out, and then take the notes back in and scan those back in. This will allow us to really get away from all of that paper piece, which is really going to be a significant savings in terms of both time and costs from doing that. That's one of the pieces we're in the process now of kind of analyzing with all of our new processes, how much efficiency gains are we getting on that? And that one's going to be very significant. I'll be able to come back and kind of provide you more numbers, but it's not small. It's more than you would think. Also, this helps us to kind of plan and schedule the work. This has some optimizations engines. So if you say have, 10 different job sites or locations you need to go to, it can build a route for you to get there the most efficient way. So we're able to save vehicle wear, vehicle time, fuel, emissions, all that stuff. So it's going to be really, really powerful in that sense as well. And then it also provides an interface to all of our other key systems as well. This is really tied at the hip with our enterprise asset management, our geographic information system of our system model as well. So really, really exciting stuff. And if you'll go to the next slide, what I think is extra exciting is later this year, we'll be deploying kind of what we're calling like a release 0 of this, which is really, it's just the map functionality out to the field. So we're going to be deploying 10-inch kind of ruggedized tablets, and the crews will be able to go in and see the updated map. Today, a lot of times it's kind of a disconnected model, so it may not be up to date. They'll actually be able to see that up-to-date model. And what I think is really cool about this is it gives a chance for those frontline users to get a look and feel for what this tool is going to be just as a map today, but to get really familiar with it before we go to providing all the daily work in this tool a year from now. So it's kind of a nice change management piece as well to kind of ease into it, get a little bit familiar with the look and feel, and then we'll add on the rest of that functionality next year for that. So this is something that's going to be really cool and a good kind of stepping stone for the crews in the field to really see what's going on, for them to see, proposed work and things that are happening in those areas when they're out there, able to kind of built-in routing and mapping, like take me to this transformer number, and it'll provide a nice driving directions with the interface with the Google Maps. So really exciting stuff coming later this year, prior to the big deployment next year. And I believe there's just one more slide here on kind of our next steps. So one of the things that we're doing is wrapping up kind of the construction of our meter farm or our lab that sits at the 43rd and Leavenworth office there. That's going to be a really cool place to test. Actually, this week, we're testing some of the communication gateways of those endpoints in that lab. We're doing the commissioning of that. So now we'll be able to do some over-the-air testing with the meters, and we're going to continuously kind of build that out. We're looking to have kind of our head-in system, or where that data goes, kind of a development version of that within the next month or so as well. So really cool stuff happening with the meters themselves there. As I mentioned, we're going to have the map viewer piece later this year. We also have our new Esri GIS is live right now and in parallel with the old system. It's not yet our system of record, but we're kind of running both at the same time. This allows for our new systems, like our new outage management, to interface with that new system, while also we're keeping the old system as our system of record so that we don't, there's not any disconnect between the work going on today and the future work. So we're running both in parallel, and then next year we'll cut over to that new one as the system of record. We also have lots of strategy and planning going on in our customer engagement space, as I mentioned, for that soft launch of what do we want that outreach to look like? What does the communication look like? What type of events do we need to hold in various areas? So really exciting stuff there. And then our next quarterly update is penciled in for the August all committees meeting. So with that, I'll pause for questions on this quarterly update.
So is the data, I hear this presentation and I think that's going to require a lot of data analysts, right? Or is that built into the system? Does it work?
It's going to be a little
Is
bit.
it automated, or is it going to require a lot of new employees to do data analysis?
I'd say a little bit of both. There's functionalities built in on kind of common use cases for the data. And then there's things that we may want to kind of customize based on our operations, combining meter data with other like our asset management kind of records on how much we've done maintenance. When was the last time we were out there? So that's going to take humans to kind of bring those kind of two data sources together a bit, at least up front, to kind of set that up. Longer term, I think we'll be able to, potentially apply some of that kind of machine learning analytics across. But I think in the near term, it is going to take I'm going to be hiring later this year on my team a data engineer focused specifically on this. And we have other data engineers and analysts throughout the company as well that are going to be engaged across this. So I think the answer is both. And I think we're going to kind of need them long term as the technology gets better and better. That's going to be awesome. But then it's almost going to need people still to make it even better. So it's kind of going to be
It's really quick, maybe in 1 or 2 minutes. Kate Brown, I understand you're online. If we can unmute her, maybe Kate can talk a little bit about because there's a gigantic effort that's happening. That's a fantastic question from Omaha. And from our technology team, what are your teams doing and preparing with your data management division? Can you talk a little bit about that? How we're preparing for this new reality?
I sure can. Thank you very much. I love this conversation around data. Very passionate about this topic. So yeah, we have Dale Rushoff, who's new in role as the Director over Information Management. And we are working down a path starting in the data governance space, because we have to put the governance around the information, and then working towards a plan around the classification, and then looking at the breadth and depth of what will be coming from data, not just within this space. This is across all of OPPD. And then also think about the artificial intelligence world that we are all living in. And we're taking all of that, we're creating a strategy and a plan. We're working with outside resources around all of that. And we're building this path forward that will address what we're talking about here. We're being very, what I would call thoughtful and methodical, and learning from others that have gone before in the space of what we're doing. So we have other utilities we've been talking to. As I mentioned, outside external organizations that have depth of knowledge in this space, and then just other people out in the industry of the world of AI and data, because the artificial intelligence world is so closely connected into this. So will we need different skill sets, new models and ways of working? We will. We're laying that course and plan and carrying it forward, but knowing that we will have to adjust in different ways as we learn more through the process of what we're doing. I hope that gives a little bit sense of the work we're doing. There's a lot going into this space in support of this work around this topic. I'm open for any questions anyone has.
I think some of the businesses also, like for instance, my asset management group, we have data analysts in there that we've added over the past few years. We also have a community of practice that's focused on data and data analysis within OPPD to help foster that culture, to add skill sets across the organization. There's 50 to 75 people that are very active in that endeavor. So it's something that we've seen coming. we've been planning for, and we have good plans in place to be able to execute the way we need to.
The community of practice is another variant of an ERG that focuses on a specific function and skill set. So that's what we have.
I also wanted to add to that is that Mikkel Cornell has been working also in the space of looking at this from what we'll need from a skill set data analyst, data sciences, data engineer in collaboration with other ELT members. So there's a lot of thought and viewing into this and try really like what you called out there, because that's growing in terms of what's happening in those spaces. But I didn't know if Mikkel wanted to join in the conversation around that, because she's had a lot of input and thoughts in this space.
Thank you, Kate. We are definitely looking at, and actually it's not just data, but that is one that's definitely risen to the top for us in terms of all the skills that are going to be needed across IT technology, that type of platform. And actually we are scheduled to meet someone with the folks at UNO. I was going to be meeting with them anyway, because I think we need to determine how we're going to reskill some of our folks in that space. So we're doing that type of work relative to making sure we have the skill set for the immediate future, as well as more in the long-term horizon.
Eric, could you just remind us high-level milestones for this project, what's happening? I mean, not the detail, right, but give us the big milestones and help us recall what the.
Yeah, so kind of the big efforts, a lot of the systems will kind of have three major releases next year. Kind of our release 1A will be the outage management system, as well as some pieces of the customer platform related to the outage map itself in the meter data management. And those will go live projected for second quarter next year. Then we'll have kind of the end of third quarter where we'll have the field service management, enterprise asset management. And that's when we'll first start deploying meters out into the field. And then we'll have kind of our third release, which is also with the customer platform, kind of that mobile piece. At first, it will be the web, like a mobile optimized web version, and then it'll be a dedicated app as kind of that third release across. So, and again, as I forgot to mention too, on the first release is where also the GIS will go live as the new system of record. So the three major releases across the technology occur in 2025, and then in that third quarter time is when we'll start getting the meters out in the field as part of that 10,000.
I think some OMS Compass stuff too in that first release.
Yeah, the Compass is part of that outage management release, and the Compass is our mobile tool for outages that will show the actual as operated model for our crews and be able to see any switching or clearances that are out of the system, hold orders, for an extra kind of layer of visibility on the safety aspect as well. So lots of stuff coming.
Perfect, thank you. Colleagues, any other last questions?
Sometimes we talk a lot about the time it takes to deliver things, and that can be frustrating for us. It can be frustrating for others. I think as we walk through this slide, especially when you see the dependencies, you don't know the dependencies until you go through the platform selection and you understand the platform selection and where the functionality is going to be housed, and you can have the dependency conversation. And you talked about this, but maybe just to highlight that a little bit more, that's kind of what we're having to labor through. And we've made good progress, been very intentional with that. So.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good update.
Yeah, we've got, like I say, our targets out there for those release dates. We do feel it's more important to do this well and do it right than do it by a date. But so things may shift a bit as we get into it, but we've got some really good aggressive targets that we're really charging for.
Great. Great work. Appreciate the update. Thank you very much. Systems Ross.
Great, thanks very much. The end of the agenda, we have other business. First, confirming the board meeting agenda for this week. And what we've got shown is all of the action items reflected on the consent agenda. The directors have any strong feelings about moving anything from the consent agenda to the discussion agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll plan for this to be the final agenda for Thursday. Next, we've got the review of the board work plan. And there are a couple things here. I guess, do chairs of any of the committees have any updates to be reflected in the board work plan? Okay. From my discussion with CEO Fernandez, there's an item about engagement with the board and ELT and the CEO with customers and extra presentations. And we talked about this a little bit before this meeting, and I think that directors should have seen more discussions with Javier about our engagement in multiple different areas. And so do you want to elaborate any more on kind of where we have been on this specific item and what we anticipate moving forward?
Certainly. So what part of the discussion we had at the workshop was we found it beneficial for both the board and the organization to have a lot more engagement with customers, with employees, with stakeholders, with industry groups, et cetera. And so the task was for me to operationalize new partnerships, new opportunities between board members and all of these other groups. So what I've been doing is being intentional about inviting board members, depending on your availability and your interest, your area, the area that you cover in each of your committees, to attend industry events, conferences, employee events, etc. So I've been trying to do this in a thoughtful manner. Last year, it was second half of last year when we began doing that. We're already well into 2024, and we're already doing that in the same way. Erin Lane is helping me keep track. We have a matrix of participation by board member, making sure that we're hitting all the areas and that we're really having a more engaged participation with the board. Conversation I had with Director Williams was, I feel, this is a feel, we've achieved, at least in my mind, what the original goal was. Absent a more specific, organized, prescribed method of engaging the board, I believe that this is, I would like to mark this as complete and leave the scheduling as open as it has been, because that gives us a flexibility of figuring out who's interested, how do we invite people, et cetera, without it being too prescriptive and have a less flexibility. So I share this with Chair Williams. That would be my preference. We would like to check in with the rest of the board to see if you agree or if you think there's anything else we need to do so we can work on.
And this also revisits an item from a board workshop from a few years ago now, I think, an indication of when is an individual director acting in an official capacity as part of the organization and leadership and traveling to conferences with the CEO or other aspects like that. So the idea of distinguishing official actions for a director and how that's reflected in our capacity as, isolating that to the organization rather than the other stuff that we also do, community engagement, that kind of stuff of our own choosing. So I don't know if you all have felt that Javier's specific engagement with you has been aligned with your interests. And if so, this isn't a policy change per se, but it's more of an internal work process update that we should continue to check in on, and perhaps annually at the board governance workshop, we would revisit or some other time and just express our feelings about whether we feel the engagement with the CEO and our participation with and engagement with stakeholders, customers, et cetera, has been meeting our needs. So that doesn't trigger any additional policy update or anything like that, but this is kind of a conclusion of that item. So I don't know if anybody has any specific thoughts you would like to share on how this has gone recently.
I appreciate being included on the things that you invited me to so far. I feel like my schedule limits my availability, but in future years that might open up. So I feel that we're hitting the mark on what the intention was.
Okay, so yeah, and the only reason we wanted to mention this today is it'll probably be marked now as completed. That doesn't trigger any additional steps or any official approval. Just we did this work. We appreciate Javier's focus on it, and we'll continue to carry this forward. Yeah.
Is it working for you?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. The type of engagement I'm getting from employees, the visibility that employees are enjoying about having board members attend different events, I think that's been very positive. It also allows me to when I go to a conference or we go to an SPP board meeting, I come back and it's not just me, right? I can turn, and just having 2 or 3 people in the same room, it helps bounce ideas and have a more robust discussion. It feels less of a report out and more of a conversation because there's many of us now participating in the same forum. So it is working for me. Thank you.
Great. All right, so we'll plan to mark this as complete on the board work plan and probably not see it reflected in the future. And I hope you find your engagements informative and productive, and feel free to express if you have any thoughts in the future to Javier about how that's going. No other changes or updates anywhere here? Okay. Great. Next, we have an additional item on the other business, new generation announcements.
I'll tee these off and maybe I'll ask Brad to help me out here briefly there any specific questions. So this is, and the reason I'm doing this is because Brad Underwood and his team, and especially Brad, he's too humble and he's not gonna give himself enough credit. So first, before we go into the announcement, I wanna express my deep sense of appreciation and gratitude to our systems transformation team, led by Mr. Brad Underwood and everyone in your team. Director Moody, you said it's been about a year since we approved the resolution. It's been 9 months, 271 days almost. And
who's counting?
Who's counting?
The baby is
9 months
The baby
since
is
the
born.
board approved the resolution. And what you're about to see here, and we've already been talking about a lot of progress, the presentation, the approval we got from the Power Review Board, ordering new turbines for 900 megawatts out of the 950 megawatts that we had on natural gas. We're making some progress on renewables. Earlier this month, we had just energy start flowing out of our Platteview solar facility. We're gonna have some ribbon cutting ceremonies later in the summer. But I sat down with Brad late last summer and said, okay, what's the plan? How are we gonna execute this gigantic portfolio that SD9 is asking us? We have very specific prescribed megawatts by year that we need to have in contract and move as fast as we possibly can. And what I'm about to share here with you is the first very big announcement of a new resource, new renewable resource that we're bringing into OPPD. And this is glad to announce High Banks Wind Energy Center, which is a new generation. It is a wind farm. It is located in northern Kansas. 600 megawatts of nameplate capability, about 233 General Electric turbines. The developer is Nextera, and I'm very, very proud to announce this because this is a collaboration, a true collaborative effort between OPPD, Google, and Nextera, where we're all pulling our resources together and figuring out how do we continue to advance the electrification of the economy, serve our load, serve our customers on a timely manner, provide additional capacity to the system, and do this in a manner that continues to advance our commitment to being a net zero carbon utility by 2050. It is, to me, it hits all those marks really well. Commercial operation, as I mentioned, started December of 2023. We got the firm network service transmission study completed by SPP just a few days ago, just in May, which was the last seal of approval we needed from SPP to confirm that no additional transmission investments are required for this facility to inject energy into the system. Over the life of the facility, and again, we do not own this, we do not operate it. This is Nextera owns and operates these. Google has control of large part of this energy. What OPPD did was we contracted for the capacity that this wind farm provides, which is very, very important piece in our resource adequacy quest. We're expecting this to generate about $149 million in landowner payments over the life of the issue. These are, again, landowners in Kansas. We're working really hard to make this a reality in Nebraska. Let me be clear, right? This is our priority is to continue to do this in Nebraska. We want to keep these dollars in Nebraska. We will continue to work hard here. However, we had this opportunity to do this with this particular facility in Kansas. It's about $224 million in tax revenue over the life of the facility, and it employed about 350 construction jobs during the construction part. You can see at the graph at the bottom, it shows the remaining renewables based on that resolution the board approved 271 days ago. So this is a gigantic improvement. This is we've talked about what does contracted mean. Well, this is probably the last end of contracted. We went from 0 to 100% of contracted on a facility that already exists, and we are getting that capacity. Unfortunately, there aren't that many of these available, but when we find one and we found the right partnership, collaborative partnership between a very large customer, a developer, and OPPD, we were able to resource it. So super excited. Again, it's a very big step towards meeting our resource adequacy constraints. It doesn't get us all the way there. There's still 900 megawatts left under that resolution, and potentially even more as our economy and our load continues to grow. But I didn't want to leave these just as a little bullet point. This is a big deal, and we're very proud of the work that the team did. Lots of coordination, lots of studies, and now we're ready to announce it. So there will be some press release released later today. There's a coordination between us and the other two parties. I don't know if there are any questions for Mr. Underwood or for myself. I failed to acknowledge Mr. Joe Lang, who's sitting in the back of the room. He's leading our generation origination team, who was key in identifying this and securing the transaction. And so thank you, Joe, for all your work.
And Mr. Tim McAree and Janae, they were certainly instrumental in the processes as well.
Yeah, from the customer's perspective. Thank you, Tim.
Jeff's folks on the desk. I mean, we could go down the list.
Everyone.
Yeah, really fun to celebrate it and deliver it for our customers and keep us moving forward.
Right, any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I guess I'm just, this is fantastic. I've got curiosity questions. How does this differ from EPAs that we have for the other 900 megawatts of that?
Most of the other 900 megawatts, 970-ish megawatts of wind that we acquired all the way from the early 2010s through 2016 or 17. Those are the ones that we have online today. Each contract, each PPA is different. Most of those contracts, we are getting both energy and capacity and RECs, renewable energy credits. In this case, because of the specific construct we have with this particular customer, that customer gets the energy from this facility. We get the capacity. And the capacity is very important for us, as we have to satisfy capacity accreditation requirements with the Southwest Power Pool. So we're bringing load. We need to make sure that we have the capacity to serve that load. We're getting the 600 megawatts of capacity, which is really what we've been in deficit for a while, or facing a deficit is on the capacity side.
Yep.
So that's how it differs from the other PPAs.
So you said three things: capacity, energy, and RECs. We get the capacity, they retain the energy and the RECs.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And of course, the price that we paid reflects 5%.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you.
And there will be other PPAs that we're looking into the future, and those are very likely going to look different than these, depending on the characteristics, the location, the maturity of the project.
Yeah, it's great. This is great.
Just always remember that the transmission grid doesn't discriminate on electrons.
Right.
So our customers are getting these electrons effectively.
Yes. Yep. Starting in December of last year, they already started receiving some of those electrons.
They don't just automatically go straight to the data center.
Right.
Nope.
We haven't been able to follow them yet.
They're moving very fast. So I think.
Sorry, I'll again, just from a systems standpoint, I'm wearing my systems chair hat a little bit. you know, I'm looking at the arc from when we approved near-term generation. How many days? 271 days, was that what it was? And I think it's fair to say that, you know, people have asked, our customer owners have asked questions of, you know, isn't all of this driven by those evil data centers, right? And like, to me, I want to hold this up as an example where the partnership is real. It's meaningful, it's mutually beneficial. You know, and I've been in the room with the Googles and we've had conversations about what this needs to look like. And so it's just really thrilling to see this materialize in a way that helps all parties meet their needs. The work is not done. We've got lots more to do, but it's just really, really delightful to see like all of that work culminate in something that we can bring that's pretty significant.
Thank you for pointing that out. I think, you know, data centers are coming in. They're not only serving those particular companies, they're really serving all of us. As the economy continues to be more digital, all of our banking needs, hospital, healthcare, education needs. But your point's absolutely right. We have these very large loads coming in. They're bringing the load, and they're bringing solutions, which is unique.
Yeah.
Right, and I think this is one where we are very proud of the work that we've done with Tim McGravy's team on establishing that partnership. Where actually we've received feedback from Google to say, hey, this type of partnership is working well, and it's working so well that we may want to emulate this same model elsewhere in the country. So yes, to your point, they're coming in with solutions, which is fantastic.
So to the point of the separation between capacity and energy and RECs, I think recently we made some internal updates to the way we're reporting energy and capacity during the president's report. And I anticipate that there will be continued updates to make sure that we reflect the way that our new PPAs and our existing PPAs meet the needs of all of our customers. I know that we have made that adjustment mostly because things are more complicated than they were in the past. The percentage of energy from a particular source is slightly more complex than it was, but appreciate the focus on the clarifying for public understanding of where the capacity energy RECs are coming from and where they're going. And I know that the development of the new REC program that we have is also a part of this. So I'll look forward to additional updates so that we can help people to clearly understand the various aspects of various types of assets that we own and how those bring benefit to OPPD broadly, where from the near-term generation resolution, the metric that we had was on megawatts of capacity. And so that is somewhat different than energy, but that is a more complex discussion than we probably were able to write in that SD9 update. But having additional discussion to make sure that the board members and our customer owners are aware of how this all works together, I think is going to be critical moving forward. So appreciate the recognition of that being, you know, a complex topic to present publicly, especially in something as relatively limited as the president's report. But hopefully with the SD7 and SD9 monitoring reports, we can continue to convey that information in the future. Because again, this is somewhat different, but new and, you know, very glad to see this happening and very glad to hear more about how this meets our needs and meets the needs of our customers in the future. Right. Anyone else?
That concludes the report.
Thoughts, comments, questions? All good? Okay. Well, again, thanks very much for that announcement and update, and congratulations and appreciation to everybody who's involved from all of the teams. Very glad to hear it. The last item on our agenda is the recently updated opportunity for public comment during the committee meeting. And let's see, I have updated language for this. Before we adjourn, we will take comments from the public on items of district business. Comments made by all parties during the meeting are part of the official public record. We will take comment in the room first and then via WebEx. For in-person attendees, if you wish to make a comment, I will call you to the podium. Is this correct? Are we doing physical in-person in the room? Okay.
If somebody's here.
If there are.
Oh, that's right. They are. Yes, they would physically come to the room right now. So we have, I guess, is anyone there?
No.
No? Okay. Well, all the same. Please state your name, address, and the name of any organization or person you represent. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending. To assist you, we will use the timer on the screen. Ms. Lane will signal when you have 30 seconds remaining, as well as when time is up. If you have written materials, please deliver them to Ms. Lane. For WebEx attendees, if you wish to make a comment, please send the meeting host a message using the chat feature or utilize the hand raise feature. Detailed instructions can be found on the OPPD website at the link shown on the screen. When I call on a member of the public to speak, please affirm that we can hear you before commencing with your comments. Please state your name, address, and the name of any organization or person you represent. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending. To assist you, we will use the timer on the screen and signal when you have 30 seconds remaining, as well as when time is up. If you have written materials, please email them to corporatesecretary@oppd.com, and they will be received on our behalf. For all attendees, please direct your comments to me. I will either respond to you directly or defer response to another board member or officer of the district. The board values and welcomes civil, respectful, clear, and concise communication from the public. During public comments, speakers should refrain from repetitious, profane, or irrelevant comments. Speakers shall refrain from pulling the board, as such vote is not on the agenda and is prohibited by law. Ms. Lane, do we have any members of the public who would like to comment on the items, on any items of district business? No one in the room. Do we have some online?
Yes, David Corbin.
Great. David, please let us know you're there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay. David Corbin, 1002 North 49th Street, representing the Nebraska Sierra Club. As a public health professional for over 40 years, I appreciate the attention to safety and health that you give at the beginning of your meetings, as well as your health plan report that you just had. And I hope that you're keeping in mind the impact of environmental pollution and how that impacts health and safety. Of course, to which OPPD is an important source, and that OPPD not contest the new EPA air quality standards, and indeed OPPD can choose to have cleaner standards than any local or federal regulations. Again, the health and safety of the general public, as well as OPPD employees, including the inevitable heat events that are anticipated. I would hope that OPPD would work with the Douglas County Health Department to have a better system to alert the public of air quality, such as yesterday and today from the smoke from Canada. And in alignment with the finance report about the dollar energy program, I hope OPPD will work with the $62 million Solar for All grant from the Center for Rural Affairs in combination with the Omaha Climate Action Plan. OPPD is key, if not the main organization that can help to make these initiatives work. I recommend that the level of OPPD's cooperation with these programs be part of the President's report at board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. We have any other members of the public online to make comments?
Just refresh real quick. Not at this time.
Great. Well, that's the end of the agenda. And with that, we are adjourned. Thanks very much, everyone.